Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is Open Mic, not the John Campea Show that we normally do Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. This is, of course, Open Mic, where all we do is take your live questions. Now, for some of you who may be behind, we did talk about this last week several times, and I did post about it and all this kind of stuff. But for those of you who might be a little bit behind, you're wondering, wait a minute, where's the John Campea Show? Why didn't it start 9 a.m., blah, blah, blah. The John Campea Show is going on hiatus for a couple of weeks. It's a incredibly effort-intensive show to do. I needed a couple weeks of a breather to get caught up on a lot of things and just to take a little bit of a break. But we did say we're going to do open mics a couple of times a week because they are much easier. Well, there's not a lot of preparation that goes into doing an open mic. We just get together as film fans and talk about whatever is on our mind. And it's great to see all of you guys here today. Dudes, I'm only one day in to my little bit of a hiatus and break, and it's been pretty awesome already. I got a whole bunch of stuff done on my documentary yesterday, and it's been months since I got a lot of stuff done on my documentary in one day. Got to spend time, I got to go out for lunch and went out for dinner with my wife. I can't remember last time me and my wife went out to have lunch together and we went out to have dinner together. It's been great. I've been loving it. But I am, of course, looking forward to the John Campea Show coming back in a few weeks. And we just figured now's a good time. If we're going to go on hiatus with the John Campea Show, now's a good time to do it since the theaters are still closed. And better to take a little bit of a hiatus now until when, as opposed to when they open up and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, guys, open mic today. We're going to be taking your questions. You guys can get in a question or comment. Just simply use the tip link that's in the top line of the description of this video. You can just click on that, or you can enter it in simply streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Now, before we get to the live questions, a couple things I want to touch on quickly here. And one will be the Batman situation with Michael Keaton, absolutely. But the first thing I wanted to kind of point out here, because I think this is big and I think this is important, and even though it isn't really the movie world, it is this online streaming world that I'm a part of. And I wanted to talk about this just for a second. Now, online game streaming is a huge deal right now between YouTube and Twitch, obviously, and Facebook gaming. And of course, one of the newer players in town was the Microsoft-owned service Mixer. Now, you guys remember, Mixer made a big splash less than a year ago when they signed the world's biggest game streamer, Ninja, to a $30 million deal, I believe is what he was contracted for. And then another big Twitch streamer named Shroud got like a $10 million deal. And Microsoft really put up a big effort to try to woo people and lure people off of whatever other streaming platform they were using and said, come to Mixer. Look at us. We're paying Ninja all this money. We're taking this seriously. You can come and build your following. You can come and build a career over here on Mixer. And that was the big message. And so a lot of people, not as many as they were hoping, but a lot of people said, okay, Microsoft, we're going to do that. We're going to go over and we're going to pour our blood, sweat, and tears into developing our following and to developing our, I hate using this word, but developing our brand over on the Mixer platform. Because you tell us that you're taking this seriously and you're all in on doing Mixer and you paid all this money for Ninja, Shroud, and all this kind of stuff. So a bunch of people went over to Mixer and they put 6, 7, 8 hours a day. I've seen some of those game streamers over there, like literally doing like 5, 6, 7 hours of streaming per day. And if you think streaming is easy, you have no idea. You have no idea. Like, these people are constantly putting themselves out there and blah, blah, and they work hard and they were doing all these things because Mixer told them they were taking it seriously. Microsoft told them, come over here. We're taking this thing real seriously. We're going to build a following. We're going to build this empire. We're going to do all this kind of stuff. Well, for those of you who did not see the news, without any warning, out of nowhere, and in a tweet, this is how Microsoft and Mixer let everybody know. They did it with a tweet. They announced that Mixer was being shut down. They've made an arrangement with Facebook Gaming that a lot of the Mixer stuff can be absorbed into Facebook Gaming. Not a lot of people want to go over to Facebook Gaming, so whatever, they're going to have to leave it. And with no warning, no notice, in a tweet, Hey, by the way, guys, thank you all for trusting us when we said we're building this new platform and we were taking it seriously. Thank you so much for coming over here and pouring your blood, sweat, and tears and all this effort and energy into building your brand and building your following and building, for a lot of these people, building a career. I mean, a lot of these people, this was what they were doing to earn a living, and they worked hard. And some of them like earn half of their living, like they work a part-time job and then they earn a part-time income from doing, but whatever. Thank you so much for coming over and trusting us. And we're pulling the plug with no warning. We're just going to let you know in a tweet, hey, everybody, we're shutting down, and we're shutting down in 1 month. And I got to tell you, I was gutted for these people. Now, I don't use Mixer myself, so I don't really care. As far as the platform goes, I don't care about the platform. It's not my thing. But I felt gutted for these people because, listen, I really am more like a game streamer than I am. Let's put it this way. My stuff is more like people who game stream on Twitch than I am like a Chris Stuckman or a Jeremy Johns or something like that. Because I'm a live streamer. That's what I do. I'm a live interactive streamer. I do other stuff too. I do pre-recorded stuff, yeah, here and there, but I'm really more of a live streamer than anything else. And my heart goes out to a lot of these people who trusted Microsoft and trusted Mixer when they said, come over here, we're going to build something, we're going to take this seriously. And less than a year later, they pulled the plug with no knowledge. Now, there are some people I'm already seeing online who clearly don't know much about this stuff, who are saying, oh, it's no big deal. Just go start streaming on YouTube or go start streaming on Twitch and all your followers will just come with you. That's not how it works. You guys know that's not how it works. You know, changing viewers' viewing habits is incredibly difficult. Like, I don't know how many YouTube subscribers that Chris has right now, Stuckman, how many he has. Let's say, I don't know, let's say it's 500,000. Let's say it's 500,000 subscribers. Probably more, but I'm just pulling a number out of my ass right now. You think tomorrow, if Chris suddenly, for whatever reason, had to leave YouTube and suddenly go over to Vimeo, do you think the next day he would have 500,000 followers on Vimeo? No, he wouldn't. He'd be lucky to have 10% of that. And maybe over time and over years, he'll be able to build it back up and all that kind of stuff. But that's the problem that a lot of these people, and I spent some time last night, looking at reaction videos, like reactions that Mixer people who earned their living, people who trusted Microsoft, people who trusted Mixer, people who put their faith in them and decided to move their stuff over and to build their brand on Mixer, to be given no hint, no clue that they were going to shut down, and find out in a publicly released tweet, oh, by the way, guys, in 1 month, we're pulling the plug. And you can either go over to Facebook Gaming or you can go somewhere else, but there's that. And it's tough. And I watched a lot of these people who were just heartbroken over this. And listen, I'm a Microsoft fan. I am using Microsoft Windows as we speak. But poor play on Microsoft and Mixer's part, the way they managed this. They should have given, if they were thinking that they needed to get out of the game, they should have given some hint to their partner content creators months ago. Hey guys, just so you know, our growth is stagnated. We have no real growth. Our plan isn't working. They should have either, if you're going to tell people, trust us, come over here, let's build a platform here. You're Microsoft. You have multiple billions of dollars. Be committed to like at least a 3-year attempt or a 4-year attempt. If you're asking other people to trust you, invest back into that and give it a legitimate shot. Or when you realize that this isn't working, you've got to give your partners, the people who trusted you, a little bit of a heads up. I don't know. I just shame on Microsoft, shame on Mixer for the way they handled this. I feel so bad for these content creators who poured so much of themselves into building their things, and now it's just suddenly taken away from them. And that's unfortunate. It's sad. And again, if you're one of those Mixer people, my heart goes out to you, man. That's horrible. And best of luck to all of you as you now switch platforms to whatever platform you're going to go to. And may you have a really good, successful transition. I hope things work out. Anyway, Okay, with that down, guys, I really want to touch again. This is something that touches me close to my heart because, like I said, I really consider myself more like a game streamer. Except when people tune in and watch me, they're not watching me play Call of Duty. They're tuning in to watch me talk about movies. But essentially, I'm a streamer, right? And so my heart really broke when I saw what these people are going to go through here. Anyway, a lot of people, by the way, thousands of people just lost their livelihoods like that. Because Microsoft decided they weren't worth giving a heads up to. And listen, heads up could go a long way. Like, if some of these people knew, like, 2 or 3 months ago, they could start slowly planning what their movie is going to be, start developing things that would help them transition down the road, and now they got a couple of weeks. It's really unfortunate. It really is. Anyway, let's see here. Now, somebody's saying, is my audio okay? Some people are saying there's something wrong with my audio. I thought everything sounded okay. I thought the audio sounded fine. I'm not really sure what people are saying. Let me just take a quick look here. Let's see here. Let me just do a quick check to make sure everything's going to be okay. Is everything all right? Everybody's saying audio's fine. Okay, audio's fine. All right, audio's good. Let's keep on going now then. And obviously, the one other thing I want to talk about here before we get into the live questions is obviously the big news came out yesterday. Michael Keaton, the guy who played Batman in Tim Burton's movies. He was in Batman and Batman. He was in Batman for Tim Burton. I keep tripping over Tim's name. Why is it so hard to say Tim Burton? Batman Tim Burton. Batman Tim Burton. Anyway, he did 2 films as Batman. And according to a story in the Wrap, he is in talks to come back to play Batman again, particularly to play Batman in the upcoming Flash movie. Now, there's a couple of things we need to address off the top here to be very, very clear. And folks, we're going to need you to start spreading some information that's factual information. Number 1, this is not a done deal. Let's be clear about that. It's not a done deal. It's actually the Wrap, which is the story that broke this news. The Wrap is the outlet that broke the news. They said the following: after nearly 30 years, Michael Keaton is in talks to return to the role of Batman to appear alongside Ezra Miller in Warner Brothers' upcoming movie, The Flash. The Wrap has learned exclusively talks with Keaton. Now, this is key here. Listen to this. Talks with Keaton are in the very early stages, and it is far from a sure thing and can go either way. No details are currently available about how big or small Keaton's role is. All right, there's so much information in there that contradicts a lot of misinformation that's being spread around. All right, first of all, I'm seeing a whole bunch of places saying it's a done deal. Michael Keaton's coming back as Batman. Not so fast. The Wrap is saying themselves in the very first paragraph, this is very, very early discussions. It could go either way. This is by no means a sure thing. Now, normally, when we hear about an actor going into talks for a movie, normally it's pretty much a done deal. Normally it's pretty much a done deal. You've got to come to the point of, okay, we want you to be in this role. Okay, I want to be in the role. Great. Now let's enter into negotiations and get the details worked out. Apparently, though, according to what the Wrap is saying here, this is far from a done deal. That's what they're saying. Now, remember, the Wrap is the outlet that broke this story. They're the ones who got the information. They're saying it's in very early stages. It could go either way, and it's by no means a sure thing. Okay? So everybody's got to keep that in mind. The next thing that you got to keep in mind is this, is that people have taken this story and started making up a whole bunch of other news stories. Like Michael Keaton's Batman is going to be the Nick Fury in the rest of the DCU. And Michael Keaton's, they're doing this to set up a Batman Beyond movie and blah, blah, blah. I want to just point out that if you read this entire article, there is nothing in here about about the talks involving Michael Keaton being the Nick Fury of the DCEU. There is absolutely nothing in here about anything involving Batman Beyond. There is nothing in here about any of that at all. All the stuff that you might be seeing elsewhere is stuff people are just making up. And it's fine to speculate. Like, some of them are probably just speculating. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. If you see some website or YouTube channel doing a speculation about, hey, could this mean that it's Batman Beyond? And let's talk about it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying you got to make sure as you're digesting this information to understand that the actual facts are that there's nothing has been said about Batman Beyond or being in Nick Fury. As a matter of fact, even the rap says no details are currently available on even how big or small the role is. This could be an infinitely tiny, tiny little small part that maybe it might be just a cameo for all we know. Because if it is Flashpoint, you know that the focus of the Batman character isn't Bruce Wayne, it's Thomas Wayne, right? So maybe they're doing the story differently. All comic book movies do vary off and go off in different directions from the comic book source themselves. They all do. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's a significant role. Maybe it's a small cameo. We just don't know. So let's just make sure we understand what the facts are. And then we'll start speculating a little bit about what it could mean. But let our base understanding be, this could be a small, tiny cameo. It's not a sure thing. There's been no mention of him appearing in other films. There's been no mention of Batman Beyond. None of that stuff. All that other stuff is purely being made up and is hearsay and speculation. And speculation can be fun. But we got to understand that. All right. That being said, let's talk about the possibilities, shall we? Let's talk about the possibilities. One of the guys I know who works over at Variety said nobody saw this coming. And he's right. Nobody saw this coming. This is like, even the most optimistic of fanboys didn't really think this was coming. This is incredible news. Incredible, not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, but incredible in and of itself. The idea of seeing Michael Keaton back as Batman is kind of interesting. Now, let me talk about some of my concerns first, just so I can get those out of the way, and then we can talk about the glorious possibilities. Let's talk about my concerns first, just so we can get it done. Concern number one. I am concerned, their multiverse stuff. Listen, Crisis on CW's Arrowverse this year was a total bloody disaster. It was a total mess. It was the first Arrowverse crossover I didn't love. I've loved every other Arrowverse crossover. This Crisis on Infinite Earths was garbage. You may have liked it, and that's great if you did. It's all subjective, but to me, it was absolute utter garbage. And yeah, they did some cool little fun, silly things, like Ezra Miller coming through and standing face to face with Greg. That was fun and cool to see, but narratively made no sense. Anyway, I don't like the idea of them getting into multiverse nonsense. And if the way they conducted it in the CW verse, that's not a good sign to me. That's not a good sign at all. I'm also a little bit worried that getting Michael Keaton in there could be seen as just a gimmick, a quick little gimmick to get some attention, as opposed to, hey, we've got a real narrative purpose to have the original Batman. Well, I mean, it's not Adam West, but the original movie Batman to come back and all that kind of stuff. I'm just a little bit afraid it'll be used as a quick little gimmick that it comes and goes and takes away from the narrative and the true motion picture-ness of the films and all that kind of stuff. So I do have a little bit of worries. But with the worries down, let's talk about some of the really cool possibilities. Again, understanding that we have no idea if this Batman thing is going to be a tiny, short cameo or some big, massive thing. Because understand this. If they're just starting negotiations with Michael Keaton and they don't even know if it's going to happen or not, it could go either way, it's by no means a sure thing, then how important is it to the movie that Michael Keaton is playing Batman? Probably not all that important. Because if it was really important, this is something they would have had locked down already. If it was important that Michael Keaton be playing Batman, this is something that would have been done ages ago, before all the other work on the movie is happening. So clearly it can't be that vital. It can't be that vital. But still, the idea of seeing Michael Keaton as Batman again as Batman from the original movies, by the way. At least that's what the rap says. The rap is pointing out that this is the Batman from the first 2 Tim Burton movies. Not the other movies that came afterwards, but the first 2 Tim Burton movies. This is that Batman. That's pretty cool. And I want to throw up something else here. You know, for many years, I said a Batman Beyond movie is a stupid idea and nobody wants one. Not really, not the majority of people in the movie-going public. Nobody knows what Batman Beyond is. Nobody cares what Batman Beyond is, whatever. And they're never going to make one. However, then Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out. And for those of you who've been watching me long enough when Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out, I had to say at one point, you know, if it can work this well for Miles Morales. Now, granted, the Miles Morales situation with Spider-Man is fundamentally different than the Batman Beyond situation with Batman, right? Terry McGinnis is the one who plays Batman and Batman Beyond, and an old Bruce Wayne is kind of his mentor. Like, this old decrepit Bruce Wayne is his mentor. There are majorly fundamental differences between Miles and Spider-Man and Terry and Batman in their stories and narratives, granted, but I had to say at the time, I cannot help but think with them doing Miles Morales so well, granted it was an animated form, but this could significantly increase the possibilities of a Batman Beyond animated film. It could significantly increase the possibilities. The success, I think, of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with a Miles Morales could significantly increase the chances of a Batman Beyond animated thing. I'm still not so sure about live action. I still don't think that'll happen. Okay, well, if we're going to be on this speculation train, let's take the speculation a little bit further, just for fun. If I believe that a Batman Beyond feature animated film, which I never would have thought they would have done before, became a greater possibility with the success of Miles Morales' Spider-Man animated film, then and again, I know we're doing a lot, we're taking one speculation branch and then going on another speculation branch and then going, I know we're taking this kind of far, but still follow me here just for fun. If that's true, then if Michael Keaton as the old Batman comes along, could that not, even though there's nothing in the rap article about this has nothing to do with Batman Beyond, but theoretically speaking, if you've got Batman there, does that, maybe not the likelihood, but does it not at least create the possibility that you could then use him in a Batman Beyond situation? Again, I know we're taking this 5 steps further than the actual news, but just fun speculation here. I still think a Batman Beyond movie would be a disaster. I think it would flop. I don't think anybody in the general movie-going audience cares about Batman Beyond, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But when you look at the success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with a Miles Morales Spider-Man, and you look at the possibility of Michael Keaton coming into the DCEU as an older Batman, you have to at least, even if you're in a position like mine, you have to at least acknowledge that the possibility exists. There are opportunities. Not necessarily saying they're going to take the opportunities, but there are opportunities here for them to go in that direction if that's what they so choose. Listen, I still don't think it's a good idea. I still don't think they will. But you got to acknowledge the possibilities there. Even if you've been as hardline as I have been over the years, with this new development, you got to look at it and say, well, maybe. I still don't think so, but maybe. You got to at least acknowledge it creates the possibilities. Whether that's a good idea or a bad idea is up to everybody's own interpretation. Whether you take a failed 3-season-long animated thing that they did and you think you can make a new big live action thing, that's a big stretch, but you got to acknowledge. And honestly, I've said it a few times, but you really cannot underestimate what I think the success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and remember, it wasn't a huge blockbuster. When I say success, I mean, it's one of the best comic book movies I've ever seen. It was, I think, the 3rd best movie. I think it should have been nominated for Best Picture. It was my 3rd favorite movie of that year, only behind A Quiet Place and BlacKkKlansman. Those are the only two movies I put it behind. When you look at the success, I think you cannot underestimate how the shockwaves of that could be very influential over other studios and how they look at other maybe secondary or third level characters that you may have initially thought, like a Miles Morales, couldn't have that kind of success. Maybe you can. And if you're bringing back, if Michael Keaton's coming back, which is by no means a certainty here, it could create an opportunity for that. That's all I'm saying, is it creates opportunities. Whether or not those opportunities are things they're actually looking at, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, guys, I wanted to touch on that Mixer thing, and obviously I want to touch on the Michael Keaton thing. I'm sure several of you guys are going to be wanting to bring up the Michael Keaton thing in the live chat. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump over into that live chat, shall we? And we're going to get things started here with Shekel Monkey, who writes, "Hey, John, big fan from Israel. Thank you so much, man. I'm always amazed how many people from Israel watch the show. I'm constantly amazed by that. I love trailers for movies. I'm actually doing a documentary about trailers. I love trailers for movies, and I was wondering, who do the trailers for movies? Is it the director? Nope. The editor? Nope. Like, if I want to be the guy who makes the trailers for the movie, should I learn to be an editor or something else? Oh, it's always good to be an editor. Being able to edit will open a lot of doors. But no, that's one of the biggest misconceptions amongst film fans, is who makes the trailers. It ain't the directors of the movies. They don't make the trailers. You know, so-and-so makes the best trailers. Actually, that guy probably never made a trailer, except for when maybe he was making his own indie films or something. Now, there are very, 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 very rare exceptions to that. Super rare exceptions. But there are a couple. But basically speaking, for the most part, the director, quite oftentimes, and you'll see this in my documentary, because I talked to a couple of directors, and you'll see from my documentary, oftentimes the director doesn't even have any input in how a trailer is made or presented. I mean, they'll bring it to them and show it to the director, and they'll let him give his opinion, but they don't, most of the time, maybe sometimes they do, but most of the time they don't even listen to the director's opinion, because the director is not a marketing expert. The director is a filmmaker. And then what normally happens is that a studio, again, some have in-house, whatever, but for the longest time in Hollywood, what the standard thing to do is Hollywood takes a bunch of footage and they hire a trailer house, a company that specifically exists to help movies market themselves, and they will generally make the trailers. So, you know, the studio will provide all the footage they've had so far, and they'll tell the trailer house what kind of vibe they're going for, if there's anything they want highlighted, and then the trailer house makes the trailer. The studio signs off on the trailer or sends it back with notes and then signs off on it, and then the trailers come out. So if you're really passionate about movie trailers, I would say, yeah, learn to become an editor. You know, get Premiere Pro, or get DaVinci Resolve is a free one that a lot of people are using. I've been playing around with DaVinci Resolve, and it's free. So learn to be an editor, and look for later on and getting involved in working at a trailer house. I mean, that's the best way to do it. All right. Next up, hold on a second here. Sorry, little technical problem. Give me a second. One second. I'm having I'm just having a little bit of a hiccup. Just a little bit of a hiccup. Give me 1 second. All fixed. Got it. Sorry. Technical problems when you're running things by yourself. All right. Next up, we go to Preston, who writes, thoughts on the 2019 film Dark Waters, about a lawyer played by Mark Ruffalo. After going after a huge chemical company, left me sick to my stomach knowing the evil things that still go on in the world. Any other films that left you with this feeling of helplessness? No, Dark Water was really good. And not only are you looking at a Mark Ruffalo, you're looking at Anne Hathaway, Bill Pullman from Independence Day, and of course he's Lone Star. Tim Robbins from one of my all-time favorite movies, Shawshank Redemption. It's a terrific cast, and it's a really terrific movie. I mean, the marketing for it and the movie itself have like echoes of what's the damn name of the movie? The one with Julia Roberts, Erin Brockovich. It does. When I first saw the marketing for it, it had kind of echoes of Aaron Brockovich to it, and the movie itself does. And there are others. There are other legal dramas about, a lawyer who gets involved with the community that's been really devastatingly affected by the misdeeds of local big corporations, particularly when it comes to polluting or whatever and screwing people up. But yeah, the best comparison I have for that, Preston, and I compare it in all the most positive ways, is Aaron Brockovich. That's one that reminded me of it. But the performances were great. I thought the story was solid. It wasn't the Oscar contending film that I thought the marketing made it look out to be, but it was still a really, really good movie, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. All right, thanks for that, Preston. All right, next up, Jordan Genovese writes, "Hey, John, considering Australians' very low cases, our cinemas aren't planning to reopen until mid-July. Here, too. Our cinemas will continue theatrical runs, meaning Onward and Birds of Prey will remain in cinemas, and Trolls 2 won't be released until September. Here, thoughts?" Well, that we've been saying for a long time that the movie theaters need to open before the new movies are ready to launch, because you need to get back into the process of, shake the rust off, get audiences used to the idea that the movie theaters are open again, blah, blah, blah. And we've always said that they're going to do two things. They're going to resume the theatrical runs of movies that were just starting the theatrical runs, like Onward, maybe even Invisible Man, things like that. And that's just what you do. I mean, people aren't going to rush out to see Onward right now. Some people will. Some people didn't get a chance to see it before, and you should. You should go watch Onward. It's a very, very good movie. Invisible Man, awesome movie. If they do play that near you, go see that. I mean, it's just something that you got to do. But then you'll find they'll mix in some classic films. And by classic, I don't necessarily mean the 10 Commandments, but I mean even recent classics. Where maybe it's a Back to the Future or Jurassic Park. Maybe it's Lord of the Rings. Maybe it's Avengers Endgame or Avatar again, whatever. So you'll probably see it'll be a mix of films that were just starting the theatrical run in combination with some classic re-releases. So that's probably what's going to be until the new films are, and even once the new films start coming out, like Mulan is supposed to come out on the 24th of July. Well, guess what? That's just one movie. So they're still going to need to have other movies on the other screens. And then when Tenet comes out a week later, well, now you got Mulan and Tenet. That's just two movies. So you're going to have Russell Crowe's Unhinged, and you're going to have a bunch of the other things. So it's going to be a mixture for a while. All right. Best of luck to all of you guys in Australia getting that stuff up and running. All right. Brandon Holy writes, recently, I watched the Back to the Future trilogy again after 10 plus years, and man, do they hold up. I love this trilogy. The first two are my favorites, and the third one is my least favorite, but I still enjoy it. Your thoughts on this trilogy, and do they hold up? I am a bit in the minority on this. I love the first Back to the Future almost as much as anybody. I love that movie. I'm not the biggest fan of 2 or 3, to be honest with you, though. I mean, I like them. I like 2 and 3. I do. But to be honest with you, I think of Back to the Future the way a lot of people think of The Matrix. Like when a lot of people think of The Matrix, they don't think of the Matrix trilogy. They just think of The Matrix, the first film. That's what they think of. I'm kind of in the same boat when it comes to Back to the Future. When I think of Back to the Future, I just think of Back to the Future. I don't necessarily think of 2 or 3. I enjoyed them. But they don't have, I don't know, they just never made that impact on me that the first one did, So I love the first one. And I can certainly sit down and watch 2 and 3 with other people, but they don't rank up there nearly as high for me as that first original one. But that's just me. All right, thanks for asking that, Brandon. All right, next up, Ethan Holgate writes, "Hey, John, I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree more with you about what you said in your Last of Us 2 review. You literally took the words right out of my mouth. Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog have done it again. I've waited 3 years for this game, and it's honestly everything I ever wanted it to be. I have never been as floored by the story in a video game as I am with The Last of Us 2. I watched, for those of you who missed my little quick review of it, I didn't play the game. I watched the almost 11-hour story cut of it. So I got, which is all the cutscenes plus all the gameplay that has story elements in it. So I watched like the 11-hour thing of it. And I got to tell you, it is easily and by far the best storytelling I've ever seen in a video game. If it was a movie, I just say give it all the Oscars. It is a fundamental study at looking at what happens to people, even good people, who get saturated in pain. And what that pain does to you. That's what this movie's about. That's what this story's about. It's really, when you break it down, it's about what happens when the unfathomable pain gets in a person, and what can that pain do to somebody? How can it alter people? How can it alter your behavior? How can it alter your perception of the world around you when you have been subjected to unimaginable pain and loss? And it's brilliant. Now, there are a bunch of people out there, whole bunch of people out there, that are like review bombing it and trashing it. And listen, because there were some leaks that came out, right? And I'm going to be straight up with you. I didn't like what I heard in those leaks. I didn't like them. I didn't freak out because I said, well, let's wait to see it in context of the game. But yeah, I did not like the sounds of the leaks. I won't repeat what the leaks are for those of you who don't want to know. I won't repeat the leaks, but I didn't like what I was hearing. But I told everybody, let's just take a breath and let's see how it is in the context of the game. And I'll tell you what, in the context of the game, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And that's all I can say. The story of Last of Us is brilliant. There are a few people out there, and I'm not putting words in their mouth. This is what they've said directly. There are people out there who have said this directly, that because of something that happens in the story, they just canceled the whole game in their own heads. It was like, I want nothing to do with this game because they did this in the story. But that in the story was brilliant and beautiful and powerful. And remember, I always say that the story is not there to serve the characters. Characters are there to serve the story. And what the characters do and what is done to the characters in The Last of Us 2 is all done in the service of the story. And the story left me with my jaw agape. It's absolutely fucking brilliant. It's brilliant storytelling. And I say that with all due respect to other people who played the game, watched the story, whatever, and it did not work for them. All due respect, it's all subjective. If it didn't work for you, it didn't work for you. Awesome. But from my point of view, it is a stunning, breathtaking, ballsy achievement. Everybody says, we want our storytellers to take risks and do ballsy things. Don't play it safe. Okay, they did something super ballsy in Last of Us 2. Super ballsy. And if you've played it or saw the leaks, you know what I'm talking about. They did something super ballsy. And as soon as they did, everybody complained. We don't want you to do something ballsy. We want you to play it safe and do exactly what we expected to happen. That's not everybody who didn't like the game. That's only a small number of people. A lot of people tried the game, didn't like it. All good. But for me, man, that game, the story of that game is jaw-dropping. Not everybody will agree. And that's the great things about storytelling. We all like things differently. And that's beautiful. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I am certainly one of the people that did, though. I got to tell you. All right. Murray Reich writes, I pre-ordered a mask on Amazon that has a zipper for eating and drinking. I will give feedback once it arrives sometime in July. I don't understand that. I saw somebody else with something like that. To me, it's much easier. Like if I got a mask on, it's much easier to do this. Pull it down, drink, pull it back up. That seems easier than fiddling with a zipper and then, I don't know. To me, the idea of just tucking down your mask and pulling, that seems easier to me. I don't know. But maybe you'll try it out and you'll find it's an incredibly easy experience, Marie. And please do let me know what your experience is like once you try it out. I've got like, I'm not kidding. I've got like 20 different masks in the house. My wife has gone on like a mask buying. And when I say 20, I don't just mean for Ann and I mean me. I have like 20 because Ann has gone on this huge buying spree of buying all these different masks. She likes going out every day and wearing a different mask. It's become a fashion accessory. But so I would certainly be curious to hear what a zipper mask looks like, although you'd probably look like one of those guys from the end of Pulp Fiction down in the basement. But hey, to each their own, man, to each their own. All right, Alex Pitt writes, hey, John, I just watched your review for The Last of Us Part 2, and I completely agree with everything you said. The story is absolutely amazing, and the character development is phenomenal. The gameplay is also very fun. I finished the game in 2 days. That is nuts. Now, I was so into this story. I planned, when I saw that I was watching an 11-hour cut, I planned to say, okay, I'll watch this over 2 or 3 days. I watched it all in a day. I couldn't stop watching. I could not stop watching. I watched the whole thing in a day. Absolutely loved it. I'm glad you had a good time with it too, Alex. And at some point now, I got to download the game and actually play through it now that I know the story. All right, next up. Austin Alberto writes, oh, and sends in like a $20 tip. Thank you so much for that, Austin. I appreciate that. And because he sent in a $20 tip, we announced this last week, because he sent in a $20 tip, me answering this question is going to be clipped out and turned into its own video on the YouTube channel. So keep your eyes open for that. All right. Hey, John. With Endgame finishing 10 plus years of the MCU, we are left with 3 of the original 6 Avengers, Thor, Hawkeye, and Hulk. Plans have already been revealed for Thor and Hawkeye, but what about Hulk? I always thought that he would make a great villain. Thanks. Well, listen, the Hulk is also a very, very complicated situation. Number one, you've got the situation with Universal, where Universal has the distribution rights to any Hulk movie that Marvel wants to make. Marvel has the rights to make a Hulk movie, but if they make it, Universal has the rights to be the distributor of it, and Disney's not interested in that. So they've been keeping Hulk as a secondary character, and all that kind of stuff. Listen, when you look at World War Hulk, and if there are some of you who have not read either Planet Hulk or World War Hulk, you really should. Most people talk about Planet Hulk. I think World War Hulk is even the far better one. I like Planet Hulk very much, but World War Hulk, where basically Hulk comes back to Earth and he ain't messing around, and he's taking everybody out. He's taking everybody out. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. I love the idea, because I think, as much as I love the Russo brothers and what the Russo brothers did with Civil War and Infinity War and Endgame, and as much as I love what they've done, the one thing they did that I really hated was they neutered the Hulk. They turned Hulk into an afterthought and they wussed him up, and I did not like that. Hulk should be Hulk. But I digress. So it becomes a tricky thing to do. Hold on a second. I just lost my spot. I had a big jump for some reason. Oh my gosh, I had a massive jump. Let me get back into this. Man, remember that used to happen all the time? I'd get these big jumps. Oh, there. Okay. So am I in the right spot now? Alex, Austin. Yes. Okay. So, and Mark Ruffalo, don't forget, as of right now, Mark Ruffalo has said there are no plans for them to use the Hulk. He said there were some talks about maybe him appearing in the She-Hulk show on Disney+. But even that, he said, it was just like one conversation. I have no idea if I'm going to be in that. And there have been no discussions about Hulk being in anything else. So I really don't know right now, Austin, about what Marvel's plans are for Hulk. But that is certainly one of the things I'm going to keep my eye on. And if they do, I want them to get back to Hulk and using him as a villain. You know, where Bruce has lost control, Hulk, something terrible happens to Hulk, and it's made him mad at the world, and now it's all about the Marvel Universe has to team up to try to stop Hulk. I'm all for it. I'm down for that in spades, dude. Absolutely down for that in spades. All right, next up here, we've got Joe Slade, who writes, confuses me how people are giving The Last of Us a 0 out of 10 and saying it's terrible and disappointing just because they don't like some bits of the story. It's probably the most well-made, well-written, acted, most immersive game I've ever played. One of the best games ever. Well, I mean, listen, it's much like, look, I don't want to paint with a broad brush here because I'm only talking about a finite number of people, okay? There are some people out there that as soon as they found out, you know, that they've shifted from one character to female characters being the main characters in the game, that just instantly, they just tuned out right there. I am not saying that's everybody. I'm saying that's a small fragment. That's a small fragment. But there is that fragment of people out there that as soon as they heard that girls are the leads of this game, listen, people try to deny it. There's still very much an anti-diversity agenda out there. There is still very, very much an anti-diversity agenda out there. And when anything is ever done in any story that seems to open things up to more diversity in the stories, there are some people that instantly get their knickers in a twist. They get all upset and angry, and they're like, well, then this game sucks. But listen, there are also, you got to understand, Joe, that all storytelling is subjective. There are legitimately a lot of people who just saw the story for it and it didn't work for them. There's nothing wrong with that. Just like there's nothing wrong, even though it's unpopular, there's nothing wrong with me not liking the original Blade Runner. I wish I did, but I don't. I don't like the original Blade Runner. That puts me in the minority, but it's a story. Stories are subjective. It didn't work for me the way it worked for a lot of other people, and you just got to accept that. And while there are some bad apples out there, the reality is there's just a lot of people out there who did go into Last of Us 2 with an open mind, played it, didn't work for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, yeah, you got to just always make sure you don't confuse the rotten apples that go into these things with an agenda with the majority of them who are just, I just was looking forward to the game and it just didn't work for me. You can't mix those two up. They are two different distinct groups of people, and you can't just lump them all together in one big thing. So anyway, that's my thought on that. But yeah, I loved it. To me, it's a 10 out of 10 story. I don't know about the gameplay because I haven't tried the gameplay yet, but as far as the story goes, it's a 10 out of 10 story. Easy for me. All right, next up. David Dilks writes, why do you think it is in The Rise of Skywalker that they chose to make Rey the granddaughter of Palpatine's 113-year-old clone? When, by the way, they never say that in the movie. They never say that in the movie. They just say she's Palpatine's granddaughter. That's all that's said in the movie. When they could have done something much easier, why not say it's Palpatine's niece or the clone's great-granddaughter? Or say the clone is only 60? The story seems unnecessarily complicated that somebody cloned Palpatine at birth. Remember, none of that is in the movie. So it's not real. If it's not in the movie, it's not real. None of that is in the movie. Keep that in mind. That somebody cloned Palpatine at birth and then put memories of the dead emperor into the clone that is too old to be raised, blah, blah, blah. Listen, none of that had any significance in the movie whatsoever. The fact of the matter is, for whatever reason, J.J. Abrams, who from day one made it clear that Rey is not from any lineage, that Rey was like all Jedi before her, was nobody. And J.J. Abrams, despite like when The Phantom Menace, or The Force Awakens, I should say, came out, he went out of his way. Now, I did a video recently on The Rise of Skywalker. It's on my channel. You can go find it. It's like 20 minutes long. But I point out J.J. Abrams in interviews talking about how it's not just that Rey comes from no lineage. It's important that she comes from no lineage. And J.J. Abrams went into great passionate detail about why it's so important that Rey comes from no distinct lineage, and she's not anybody, and she's not related to anybody else in the story, and blah, blah, blah. It was hardcore important to J.J. Abrams that that's what it was, and that's the way he set it up. And that's why when The Last Jedi came around and people were upset, why did Rian Johnson say her parents are nobody? Because J.J. Abrams said her parents were nobody. J.J. Abrams made that clear. Even Ridley Scott, Daisy Ridley, Ridley Scott, Daisy Ridley, same person. Even Daisy Ridley confirmed that when she started working on The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams made it clear to her that this is what her background was. Her background was nothing. She did not come from a lineage. Everything that went wrong in The Rise of Skywalker, almost everything that went wrong in The Rise of Skywalker, was because they reacted to some of the negative criticism. Instead of staying true to their own artistic vision of what JJ wanted to do and where he wanted the story to go, they reacted. But everybody wants Rey to be a princess. Everybody wants Rey to be a princess. Oh, her dad is actually this emperor from a king far away and blah, blah, blah. So they changed everything. He changed direction completely. It's like, okay, out of nowhere. By the way, Palpatine was never... Now, I like that they put Palpatine in the story. Don't get me wrong. But Palpatine was never supposed to be in the story at all. You know, they confirmed that Palpatine was never part of the plan. Until they decided to take the director out that was doing it, put JJ back in, and they totally scrapped everything that JJ had laid the foundation for in The Force Awakens, and did a total redux, and now suddenly, oh, she's Palpatine's granddaughter, even though Palpatine was never supposed to be there. She was never supposed to be related to anybody. Why they did that, it's easy. It was all a knee-jerk reaction to the negative criticism they were getting from some people. Creators got to stay focused on their own creative vision and then ride or die with it. There's a reason why you're a professional filmmaker and all of us losers who aren't professional filmmakers aren't professional filmmakers. You know, you need to, if you got a creative vision, you go with it. Go with it. And then live or die by it. It'll either succeed or it'll fail. When you just do all these and listen, what they did in Star Wars is what Warner Brothers did for a long time with their DC universe. Everything was about reacting. Oh, Man of Steel. Half the people hated Man of Steel. Quick, let's change this. Oh, everybody did. Oh, quick, let's change that. Like, develop a plan, stick with it, and try following it through for a while, and then see where it goes. When you get into just reacting to stuff, it's very, very rare that good things will happen. It's very rare that good things will happen. But anyway, there's that. All right, next up. David Dilks also writes, one argument that I hear a lot that I disagree is that Rey Skywalker should have been a nobody. If that's the case, then how come Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon weren't trained by their parents if you're going to make the argument too much family lineage? Well, actually, David, you just proved it. You just proved the point. Listen, the story of Star Wars and the Jedi, as Qui-Gon points out, Jedi identify young Force-sensitive children, take them to the Jedi Temple to train them up. They don't come from lineages. The Jedi weren't even allowed, you know, to have romantic attachments and all that kind of stuff. So you did this one set of movies with Star Wars, and okay, here's the great exception to everything. Luke Skywalker is the child of Anakin Skywalker. Okay, great. And now you're going to go to the next movie, and the next person that comes along also has to be descended from... No, J.J. Abrams made the great point when he was doing it. It is important to understand that you didn't need to be born a prince or a princess, or you secretly discover that your father or grandfather was this or that. There was something vital and important in the whole idea about this is how the Force moves. You know, the Force kind of... It selects... So somebody's born with that Force sensitivity and you move from there. It was so vital they not just go back and do the exact same thing. And the very fact that you had Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan proves that point, that this is where these heroes are supposed to be. And I think it was a massive, massive mistake that J.J. Abrams changed direction from his original vision of making Rey a nobody, because I think that's far more powerful than saying, oh, she was Palpatine's granddaughter. So stupid. So stupid. So I actually think the point you're bringing up, David, this is just my opinion, and your opinion is every bit as valid as mine. But my opinion is the points you're bringing up just prove that she should have been treated that way. I think it was vital. But anyway, but they went another direction. Isaac Beebe writes, if Apple ever decided to make their own line of big screen TVs, which I'm not doubting that they will, what would they call them? Big Macs. Don't laugh, man. I really do believe within a year, you're going to see Apple launch their own televisions with, of course, Apple TV built into them, right? They already make their own line of monitors and very, very high quality monitors. Don't be surprised at all if now that Apple is investing all this money into their own programming and they're making the new Martin Scorsese movie and they've got their own streaming service now. Don't be surprised at all. Apple is all about their own ecosphere. Don't be surprised at all if, like, within a year, we get an announcement about Apple developing its own living room set-top television with obviously integrated Apple TV. You watch. I'm telling you, man, it's coming. It's coming. All right, Isaac Beebe writes, what did you think of the PS5 reveal event last week? Honestly, I was a little bit underwhelmed by it, to be honest. I was a little underwhelmed by it. I absolutely loved it and will be buying one day one. The game I am most excited for, other than Spider-Man, is the Demon's Soul remake. That is my favorite game from the PS3 era. Yeah, there were a couple of very good-looking games that they teased. Obviously, the Miles Morales Spider-Man thing was a very exciting thing. But here's part of the problem. I can't get excited about the idea of buying a console when you didn't even tell us the price. How do you do this big announced launch and all this kind of stuff, and you didn't even mention the price? Because listen, they do this thing and say, it's going to be available for $2.99. Oh my God, that's a great price. Okay, yeah, I can get excited about that. But for all I know, it's going to be coming out for $7.99. I'm not saying it is going to be $7.99. I'm just saying, I don't know how they went through that whole thing without saying the price. Now, I've seen some people around, some people saying it's going to be like $500. Some people saying it's going to be like $600, blah, blah, blah. But I just don't know how you do that announcement and not announce the price. Like going back to Apple, when Apple does their big keynotes and their big presentations, the very first thing they tell you is the price. And so, yeah, we got this on this device and this on the device and this on the device, and it's going to be available tomorrow for $14.59 or whatever. They tell you the price, right? I don't know how they did this whole presentation without making the price of the product a high point or you know, a major part of the reveal. That's key. That's important. But anyway, overall, look, I didn't mind the presentation. I just wasn't blown away by it. Obviously, the Miles Morales part was the most exciting thing for me. All right, Isaac Beebe also writes, John, you have told us before that you used to work in law. You know your laws and what companies can and cannot do. You should take Paramount to court over the copyright claim on your Sonic video. You will win. I also suggest boycotting Paramount Films. Well, I'm not into boycotting. The other thing is this. I can't afford this, and they know this. I can't afford to take Paramount to court. I don't have the time or the money to take Paramount to court. I just don't have it. So, and they know that. That's why Paramount and studios like Paramount know that they can act with predatory practices like this and act like bullies, not because they know they're right. They know they're wrong, but they also know there's nothing we can do about it. So they just shit all over us, and they know there's nothing we can do about it. It really sucks. That's part of the reason why I've been considering for about a year the possibility of moving off of YouTube. Because YouTube really doesn't have an adequate system in place for when copyright holders like Paramount act in bad faith. They don't have a process in place to really deal with that. Because listen, I believe that copyrights need to be protected. I believe in that wholeheartedly. I really do. Copyrights are valuable things. People invest time and money and energy in developing properties that they hold copyrights for, and I believe copyrights do need to be protected. However, what also needs to be protected are the checks and balances that certain doctrines and law put in place to make sure that copyright is not overreached. And unfortunately, while YouTube, who I know is doing their best, but while YouTube has put a lot of things in place to protect the copyright owners, there's not much in place to protect people who are acting in good faith within the proper doctrine of the law in using copyright material. And without those checks and balances being honored by YouTube, it creates a very dangerous place for people like me who are content creators who are acting in good faith and acting within the boundaries of doctrines of fair use and using things properly within the boundaries of proper legal application. There's not a lot of protections there from YouTube at all. And that could become very problematic for content creators like me moving forward. There are a bunch of content creators that have already experienced a lot of problems with stuff like that. So, but the problem is, Isaac, I don't have the time or money to go and take Paramount to court over that. I can't do it. And they know that, and YouTube isn't giving us any protections. So it's and look, I'm not pretending like the answer for that is easy. It's not easy. But they got to figure something out. There has to be a balance in protecting the rights of copyright holders while also protecting those people who are acting in good faith within the boundaries of proper legal doctrine and fair use. There has to be a balance. And they've got to figure it out. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is a very real thing, and they need to figure that out. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. All right, David Dilks writes, in your Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker complaint, you talked about Kylo facing Palpatine alone. I think he went alone so Hux wouldn't find out he had killed Snoke. Nah. Do you think the rule of two was thrown out after the death of Snoke? Kylo and Palpatine don't have apprentices. Well, number one, remember, Kylo doesn't care about Hux. Kylo could kill Hux any moment that he wants. Kylo knows he has Hux on an absolute leash. So he has no fear about Hux. So for those of you who don't know what David is talking about, I made a video about the Rise of Skywalker. And I said, one of the interesting, it wasn't a big problem, a little nitpick. When Kylo Ren goes to the very first planet Kylo Ren goes to in the Rise of Skywalker, there's a bunch of local inhabitants defending the Wayfinder, right? And he brought an entire Star Destroyer and a legion of stormtroopers to go down and help him fight off these local thugs so he could get the Wayfinder. But immediately then, he goes to Exegol, where there's supposedly Sith and the Lord Palpatine is, and he went completely by himself. That made no sense to me. So, like, for a couple of just local henchmen, you bring an entire Star Destroyer and a legion of stormtroopers to go and confront Palpatine, you just went by yourself. That just made no sense to me. It's not a big complaint. It's a nitpick. It's a tiny little nitpick. But worrying about what Hux will say, that's no big deal. The moment Kylo had any worries about Hux, he just would have cut his head off. So that's no big deal. About the rule of two, remember, Kylo never considered himself Sith. That's important. He never referred to himself as Sith at all. I don't think Snoke did either. You know, he was all about the dark side. But yeah, I believe the rule of two died with Palpatine. I think the rule of two died with Palpatine. Just my thoughts on that, but that's why I think it was there, David. All right, Andy Wags writes, I enjoy your show and wanted to support it. Well, thank you so much, Andy. It's always nice when people will just want to write in and just for the sake of supporting the show and to say something nice. So I appreciate that, Andy, very much. And thanks for being here, man. All right. Mr. Hoover writes, John, have you heard that refunds for The Last of Us Part 2 are no longer being accepted at GameStop? The YouTube channel, The Quartering, showed a video of a man being denied in a store. Am I wrong? Is this theft by Naughty Dog, Sony? What is reaction? Here's the thing. I don't know, because I don't know what the specific terms of use are. To me, it reminds me a lot of, what's the name of the guy from Parks and Rec who played Tom? Who played Tom Hatherford? Hold a second. Parks and Rec, IMDb. It's Aziz. That's right. I remember before it opened up. It's Aziz Ansari, right? Let me just hold a second. Amy Poehler, Christopher. Aziz. Yeah, okay. I don't know if you guys remember this, but a bunch of years ago, Aziz Ansari went to, I believe, my AMC Burbank 16. I believe that's the theater he went to. So Aziz Ansari went to AMC Burbank 16 to go watch a movie, and he was watching it on the IMAX screen in AMC Burbank 16. Of course, it wasn't the full 75 millimeter IMAX. It was like the digital IMAX screen that is still really big, but it's smaller than the normal IMAX and all that kind of stuff. Some people call it LIMAX. Anyway, so I don't know if you guys remember this story, but let me see if I can bring it up. AMC Theaters, Aziz, and sorry. Okay, let me see if I can find this story because it's worth bringing up here. Okay, so here's an example of it. So Aziz went to this AMC. How do I get rid of this? There we go. Aziz went to this AMC theater, and he went to go see a movie in IMAX there. He went in and realized it wasn't the traditional kind of IMAX theater, because IMAX now has a lot of these digital theaters that are not their traditional big 75 millimeter things. So he went in there and realized it wasn't the thing. And then he watched the movie. He sat there and he watched the whole movie. I'm trying to see here. Okay, here we go. Basically, IMAX is whoring out their brand name and trying to trick people. These new IMAX theaters are really just nice digital screens with good sound, but they are not IMAX in that they don't have the huge 72-foot giant screen. Still charge $5 more for tickets as they would for a regular IMAX. Regal, AMC, and IMAX, you're liars. Boycott them. F them for taking advantage of people and charging them $5. So what happened was Aziz went into the theater, realized it wasn't IMAX, stayed and watched the movie, and then came out and asked for his money back. It's like, you can't, look, I would have respected And Aziz and AMC later, I got together with Aziz once and we talked about the thing for a bit too, but later on Aziz and AMC made up and all that kind of stuff. But I would have respected what Aziz was saying if he walked into the theater and then he got mad because AMC wouldn't give him a refund because AMC's like, but you stayed and watched the whole movie. The general manager at the AMC was like, we can't give you a refund. You stayed and watched the whole movie. So I would have respected it, and I would have seen things more from Aziz's side if he went in there, realized after 5 minutes, this is not the IMAX I was expecting, and then walked out of the theater, didn't stay for the movie, asked for a refund. I've seen people get refunds for that all the time. But he stayed and watched the whole movie. You know, when I'm in a restaurant, if I take a bite into my steak and realize, hey, this isn't medium, this is like extra rare, there's still blood coming out of it, which is how some people like their steaks. I don't sit there and finish the entire steak and eat the whole thing and then ask for my money back. No, I say, hey, there's a problem with this. I just realized it's not what I was expecting. I asked for this, got this. Can you either just not charge me or can you please bring another one out that is what I asked for, right? But if you sit there and eat the whole thing, you don't then go and ask for a refund. Now, I'm not familiar completely with what's going on with The Last of Us. It's just if this is people who like bought the game and never opened it and just brought it back and wanted their refunds, that would be one thing. But if you buy the product and then consume the product, and again, I'm speaking as somebody who doesn't know the details, all right? I'm completely speaking out my ass here. I don't know the details, so I'm just speaking in theoreticals here. But if you buy a product and then consume the product, then I feel like you lose the right to return it. If you open the game and played the game, well, then it's like you ate the meal. So I don't know. No, I don't consider that stealing. You bought a product, and listen, anything like art is, any kind of storytelling or art or stuff like that, you're taking a risk. Every time you buy a ticket to go into a movie, you're taking a risk that it might be a movie you don't like. Like, I didn't ask for my money back after watching, Assassin's Creed. So I don't know. I think if it's a situation where people come back, clearly they hadn't even opened their game yet, yeah, they should absolutely get a refund. But if people go back in now and just in principle, because I don't like that they did this in the game, well, tough. I don't know. But again, maybe if I knew all the details, I would have a completely different opinion. So understand, I'm just speaking out of my ass here because I don't know what the details of this story are. Those are just some general thoughts I have on that, though. All right. Let's see here. Tony Jake writes, just watched The Last of Us 2 review, and I really enjoyed it also. What did you think of the Abby character? It did take me a while to warm up to her, but by the end, I almost found myself siding with her over Ellie. ND did a great job with her, in my opinion. Yeah, listen. I did not know what to make of the Abby character at first, and I won't go into details for people who have not played the game or watched the story yet. But it really becomes a story of revelation, right? You have to get many hours into the story before they really start to reveal all the stuff that's going on behind each one of the characters. And as we get more and more revealed about Abby, because when you first meet Abby, she does this horrific thing. And then as you get into the story of Abby, you start to feel sympathetic, almost understandable, and you start realizing what has happened to this character. And again, remember what I said before. The story of The Last of Us 2 is a story about what pain does, what unimaginable pain does to people, and how it can make them behave, and how it affects the choices you make and the things that you do, and even how you perceive your own actions. And Abby is both Abby and Ellie are archetypes of that. There really is a story about Abby and Ellie and dealing with and how they deal with in the most destructive, awful ways of what pain does to you. And I thought it was absolutely brilliant on that level. I really did. So by the end of it, I loved the character development of Abby. I loved the character story of Abby. I don't know that I loved the character Abby by the end of it, but I certainly did love the journey that the Abby character, that the role that Abby's character's journey played in the overall narrative of it. I ended up appreciating it very much. So that's just me. All right, Sunny Side Up writes, if this deal ends up happening and Keaton returns for Flashpoint and does return to become the main Batman of the DCU going forward, why do you think Warner Brothers decided to have him come back versus bringing in Pattinson as Batman in the DCU going forward? I think, Sonny, here's the thing. I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves. First of all, we don't even know that he's coming back. It's a 50-50 thing that he is coming back. And even if he does come back, the article in The Wrap makes it very clear it could be just for a cameo. It could just be for a tiny, tiny cameo. I mean, as it says right there, no details are currently available, but how big or small the Keaton role would be. So I think we're getting really far ahead of ourselves in saying, you know, oh, he's coming back and coming back. He's going to be the new Batman of the DCEU. And, well, that's taking it a little bit too far. Listen, the Robert Pattinson Batman is a different Batman. We still don't know for a fact. But it seems to me that it's becoming more and more clear that this Batman that Robert Pattinson is playing isn't the DCU Batman. He still might end up being the DCU Batman. I'm not saying he's not, but it feels like more and more, the more information we're getting, it feels like he's not going to be a DCU Batman at all. And also, there's a big problem with having Robert Pattinson as the new moving forward DCU Batman because he's, 15 years younger than the Batman that we just had in Ben Affleck. So, yeah, there's a lot of ifs. There's a lot of ifs in there. There are ifs built on ifs built on ifs. So, yeah, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. Again, we may not even get Michael Keaton in this movie at all. And if he is, it could literally be for a 30-second cameo. We just don't know. Now you could say, well, why would they bring in Michael Keaton if it's just a quick cameo? Well, let's not pretend like other big name stars have not done quick little cameos in movies like that. It happens, and it could be something that they're doing here. We don't know, though. We just don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. I'm excited to find out, though. All right, next up. Sunny Side Up writes, I feel that doing this is a giant mistake. To have Robert Pattinson in his own franchise and to have Keaton in the main DCEU, this multiverse stuff is going to confuse general audiences. It feels like they're just throwing stuff at the wall to please fans. And here's the important thing, to please a minority of the fans. These fans that they're trying to please do not represent the majority of the movie-going audience. Because you got to remember, the vast majority of the movie-going audience has never read a comic book. I mean, that's just the truth. The vast majority of the movie-going audience have never read a comic book. You have. All your friends have. So that makes you think that everybody has. But the majority of moviegoers never read a comic book. So I like the idea. Look at what they did with Joker, right? Joker, played by Joaquin Phoenix. They took him outside of the DCEU, not connected by multiverse. They just took him out of the DCEU and did his own standalone story, and it was nominated for Best Picture of the Year, won Joaquin Phoenix an Oscar, all this kind of great. It made $1 billion at the box office. It was nothing but success. You can do that with Batman too. I like the idea. But then again, we'll have to just see, like, will they continue to have a Batman? Will they do Robert Pattinson's Batman while having another Batman in the DCEU? I don't know about that. And would Flashpoint even really count? I don't know about that. So there's, like I said, Sunnyside, there's a lot of really interesting questions that I'm very excited to find out the answers for. And I'm sure as the months progress, we'll get closer and closer to those answers. All right. Thanks for writing that in, man. Next up, Steve Pintor writes, hey, John. You remember a few years ago when you were doing the John Campea Show and you got up to get something and then we saw you with no pants on? LOL, good times, my friend. Dude, I took a still shot of that and put it up on my social media. So for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, like way back in the day, there were, I'd say at least 2 times a week, I would literally do the show with no pants on. We joke about it, but I would literally do the show like twice a week with no pants on. I would roll out of bed, put on a shirt, sit down because you don't see my legs, no pants. I wasn't naked. I was like wearing my boxer briefs, but no pants. And then this one time somebody asked, hey, John, like on your shelf behind you, you have a this and this. What is that? And I go, here, I'll show you. And I turned around and I got up to get it, forgetting, of course, that I wasn't wearing pants and I just had my boxer briefs on. So yeah, so I took a screenshot of that and put it up on my social media, and I have ever since worn at least shorts, mostly usually pants, even sometimes shorts. I have always worn pants while doing the John Campea Show, because you never know when something might come up and I need to stand up. Even on, yes, despite what Aaron might have you think, what Aaron Cummings might have you think, even on No Pants Thursdays, there's usually pants on this guy. There are pants on this guy, even on No Pants Thursday. All right, I'm glad you remember that, Steve. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, I just saw both versions of Insomnia, and the really neat thing is their endings are totally different, but I also can't really say either is better or more fitting to the story. I was left totally satisfied by both, which hardly ever happens. Again, I'm very much, and we've talked about this before, I'm very much in the camp of the theatrical release is the definitive version of that film. Now, you get movies like Clue that even in their theatrical release, they had multiple versions of their endings. And that certainly happens. That certainly happens. But for me, yeah, my first viewing of it, and it is my all-time favorite Christopher Nolan film, is Insomnia. Yes, more than Memento. Yes, more than Inception. Yes, more than The Dark Knight. My actual favorite Christopher Nolan film is Insomnia. I love that movie desperately. If you haven't checked it out, I know many of you haven't, do go check it out. And good on you, Ryan, for checking that movie. I love it. I absolutely love that film. All right. B-Dog writes, hey, John, fun fact. Did you know that Ferdia Shaw, the lead actor in Artemis Fowl, is the grandson of Robert Shaw, who played shark hunter Sam Quint in Jaws? Yep, we actually just talked about this on the show last week. I love when younger generations follow in their parents' and grandparents' footsteps. Yeah, somebody else brought that up on the John Campea Show last week. It's just unfortunate that he's getting his start in such a poorly received movie, right? That's the unfortunate thing here. And it's difficult. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And I have a feeling it's going to be difficult for a young actor like that to get a lead role. And then, and it's not the kid's fault, but the movie flops so hard to get another one. But we'll see how it goes. But it is always kind of neat finding out that so-and-so is the child of so. Like, I still remember the first time I found out that Bryce Dallas Howard is the daughter of Ron Howard. I'm like, serious? Now, this is a long time ago, but still, I'm like, really? Like, I didn't know for a while. Like, when I saw her in The Help, I had no idea she was, I don't think at that point I knew she was Ron Howard's daughter. But it is always cool to find out stuff like that. It's always cool to find out stuff like that. All right, next up. Daniel Haygood writes, hey, John, just want to recommend a show on Netflix called Dark. Several people have recommended that before. It's German, but the subtitles are worth it. Some of the best acting I've seen on a Netflix show, gorgeous production design and quality, and a really engaging and twisty sci-fi story. I've heard good things about it. I got to admit, I've never been all that tempted to check it out because I don't know anything about it. But you are not the first person, Daniel. Several other people have recommended it to me, and I've seen good things. I've seen and heard good things from people talking about that particular show. So at some point, and you know what? It keeps coming up on my recommended list as well. It keeps coming up on my recommended list. So I think, so maybe Netflix and the universe is trying to speak to me here through you, Daniel Haygood. Maybe the universe is trying to speak to me through you here, but I may have to check it out at some point. So, and hey, listen, you also just put on the radar for a lot of other people as well. A lot of other people now are seeing you saying that and going, hey, maybe we should check out this show, Dark, and they will probably do it as well. All right, next up. Darklock63 writes, R.I.P. Dennis O'Neil, yeah, and of course Joel Schumacher, both of whom gave us very different versions of the Bat and had very different roles to play in that. Yeah, this of course happened a couple days ago. Joel Schumacher, who, because of the Batman stuff, I think one of the really unfortunate things about like Schumacher's Batman is it made people would often then overlook a lot of the great stuff that he did. And that is, it was really unfortunate. And it is unfortunate too, that people so grounded in the Batman history because of the roles that they played passed away so close to each other. So yeah, Darklock, good on you for bringing that up and mentioning them. I should have mentioned that off the top. So I'm glad that you did. Well done, sir. All right. Dan Ketchum writes, so, Just how many Batmans is Warner Brothers going to have? Affleck is kind of back. He's not back. He's not back. Make no mistake about it. He's not back. But Affleck is kind of back in Snyder's Justice League. Keaton is back for Flashpoint. The CW, it may be back for Flashpoint. We don't know. The CW seems to be giving us one on Batwoman. Plus, I don't think any of the above will be the Batman of the main universe. So 4 Batmans? Yeah, I don't know. Like, it goes back to something I used to talk about a long time. I remember once Schnepp and I talked we had a big in-depth discussion of this on one of the shows, which was, at some point you protect your most valuable assets, right? You protect your most valuable assets. And for Warner Brothers a long time ago, those most valuable assets were Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. You protect those assets. And so when you use them carefully. Use them carefully because these are your most valuable. It's just like like if your mom or your grandmother has the fine china, they only bring out the fine china for big family dinners. They don't pull them out when they're making you a bologna sandwich, right? Because they want to protect it. That's their good stuff. It's much like that. And I remember Schnepp and I talking on one of the shows once about how Warner Brothers was being really smart in protecting their stuff. That doesn't mean everything that had Batman in it was turning out gold, or everything that had Superman in it was turning out gold, but they were at least trying to be very protective of the properties and being very selective about when and where they would be used. My fear, and it's only a fear, it's just what I worry about. It doesn't mean it's going to come to pass. It just means I worry about it a little bit. My fear is that they start using these iconic characters like Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman so recklessly that they lose the specialness to them. They lose that special feeling of Batman. Batman's also a main character, like a semi-main character on the Harley Quinn show. I love that show. Oh, I love that show so much. Anyway, they use it on there. And there you have Batman. Everywhere there's Batman. And it lowers the value. So, I don't know. I mean, I love the idea. I don't mind the idea of having like a DCEU Batman, which who knows what that's going to be, and having a Batman that's outside of the DCU. I don't mind that. Christopher Nolan never liked the idea. Like when George Miller was going to do his Justice League movie and have a young Armie Hammer play Batman, everybody forgets about that. Armie Hammer was going to be Batman in George Miller's Justice League. Christopher Nolan was not happy with that. He was not happy that Warner Brothers was going to have another Batman running around while he was still making Batman movies. And how much influence that had on Justice League having its plug pulled, we'll never know. But, having like 3 or 4 different Batman running around, it just seems like when you use it too much, you lose the specialness. So again, that's just what I worry about. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that's one of the things I fear a little bit. All right. Let's move on here. Next up, Kazam writes, now that you've got some free time, how about giving my film Kazam another shot? Streaming on Disney Plus? Maybe if we believe hard enough, we'll get a Kazam 2. Shaq is down. Give it a watch, folks, and start spamming Disney. Hashtag make Kazam 2 happen. Oh, no. Oh, no, my friend. I remember many moons ago watching Kazam. And being very, very firmly resolute that never again do I need to watch that movie. And I like Shaq. I like Shaq Attack. I really do. But, break out that Shaq Fu. But no desire. I gotta admit, I have no desire ever to watch that movie again, my man. Probably never again. Okay. Let's see here. Let's move on here. Next one up comes to us from, where are we at? An anonymous viewer writes, if nothing Green Lantern related is announced at the DC fandom event, I'm putting my mask on and going to talk to someone at DC. Well, I mean, you've got to give them a, listen, when D23 happened, right? Kevin Feige didn't come out and announce everything. Or even more specifically, when Comic-Con happened, like there was a lot of stuff that was left off the table. There might be things they're not quite ready to talk about or announce yet. You got to remember, DC DC has been bit in the ass before. Warner Brothers and DC have been bit in the ass by making all these announcements about all these upcoming projects, and then got humbled and kind of looked a little bit silly when they had to pull the plug on a whole ton of those projects, right? So they've been bit in the ass before. You have to remember, you got to cut DC some slack if they like, hey, if we're not ready to announce something, we shouldn't announce it yet. Now they've already announced that they're going to do a Green Lantern thing, but if they're not at a place in their development yet where they're ready to announce something, I think Warner Brothers will have learned from past mistakes to say, hey, if we're not 100% ready to announce something and we're not 100% ready to reveal more details, then it is better to err on the side of caution and hold back a little bit. So I would say this, if this DC fandom event comes up in late August and they make no mention of Green Lantern, I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry at this point. I expect that they will have something to talk about with Green Lantern when DC fandom comes along. But if for whatever reason they don't, I honestly would say there's nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. There's no reason for anybody to have any sort of fear or any sort of paranoia or any sort of anything that makes you think, oh no, they didn't talk about Green Lantern. That means they've canceled the Green Lantern plans. No, don't worry about it. I fully assume that they will talk about Green Lantern at fandom, but if they don't panic. Don't panic. It just means that, hey, we're not at a point yet that we're ready to reveal too much, because we used to reveal too much too early and it came back to bite us in the ass. So if they don't say anything about Green Lantern, do not panic. All right. Because obviously they got Green Lantern plans. Just who knows where they're at in their development of it so far. All right. Let's see. Next up, Kazam writes, John, please introduce us to the geniuses over at Universal who spent $175 million on Doolittle, and the animals still looked fake AF in it. Also, would you now call Doolittle a dead franchise like Terminator, Men in Black, Predator, Star Trek films, etc.? Thanks. Well, I mean, Doolittle isn't a franchise. So Doolittle was a one-shot movie. I mean, they were hoping it could turn into a franchise, but it was never a franchise. It was a quick one-shot movie. Yeah, listen, Doolittle is a great example of, because remember when they first announced Doolittle and all the voice cast and that Robert Downey Jr. was starring in it, a lot of people got very excited about it. I was always pessimistic that it could actually do much, but this is a great example of, a studio gets a movie script, they hear the pitch, and it sounds great, and the script reads great, and then by the time you translate it onto film, it doesn't turn out so well. What ruined Doolittle was not that the animals didn't look great. Sometimes the animals look great. Sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they looked really bad. It was a terrible movie. I mean, there's just no getting around it. Doolittle was a bad movie, and for the first time in a long time, I can't remember the last time I ever said Robert Downey Jr. gave a bad performance, but he did. And I can't remember ever saying, I didn't think Robert Downey Jr. did a good job. Even though he's been in some bad movies, I always think Robert Downey Jr. does a good job. I did not like the creative decisions he made with his character. I think how he chose to portray that character and then how he went about portraying it, I did not think worked. Everything was always talking like this. And it just got annoying. So I did not think he gave a good performance. The movie wasn't executed well. Yeah, man, a lot of things went wrong. But listen, the studios always think every time you start making a movie, you think you've got a great movie on your hands. No studio goes, we think this movie will suck. We'll put in, $300 million between the production and the marketing. We'll put in $300 million anyway. Nobody goes into it like that. They always think they've got a winner on their hands. And sometimes they do. And sometimes they don't. But Doolittle was a pretty tremendous disappointment. All right, next up, Kevin Yu writes, one of two. Hey, John, I hope that you've got your much-needed deserved rest. Well, been on hiatus for one day so far. I still got a few weeks ahead of me, but I'm enjoying it so far. I can't say that I'm very excited about Michael Keaton returning to Batman. It seems like Keaton's Batman / Bruce Wayne is replacing Thomas Wayne in their movie. Thomas Wayne is what made Flashpoint a unique comic event. The idea of Thomas Wayne being Batman instead of Bruce, it seems like the movie isn't based or inspired by the comic book at all, but rather spit in the face and ignore the source material. Well, there's two really important things to point out here, Kevin. The first thing is this. You're making an assumption about something and then getting angry at your assumption. You're assuming that if Michael Keaton is in this, then that means that Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne is replacing the Thomas Wayne character as portrayed in Flashback. So you're making an assumption that's not based on anything that we've seen or know for fact, right? And then you're getting angry at your assumption. So just be very careful about that. Be very careful. We have no idea. First of all, we still don't even know if Michael Keaton's going to be there. And if he is going to be there, we don't know that that means that his character is taking over the role that Thomas Wayne's was supposed to be the role of Thomas Wayne. We don't know that. For all we know, if Michael Keaton's in it, he's in it for a 2-minute scene or a 1-minute scene near the end of the film now that the world's been reverted back to semi-normal. I mean, we don't know. So don't get too upset about it just yet. But the second thing I would want to point out is this. Kevin, every single comic book movie takes massive liberties. They all do. Every single one. You know, Captain America Civil War, which some people think is the greatest comic book film of all time. I think it's one of the best. But there are some people out there who think like Civil War, greatest comic book film of all time. It is so different from the comic book story of Civil War because you need to adapt and make the best movie possible. It's based on the comic book story of Civil War. It takes a lot of thematic things from Civil War, but it also takes a lot of liberties. One of the other top 10 best comic book movies ever made, in my opinion, X-Men Days of Future Past. One of the greatest comic book movies ever, top 10 for me. It is so different from the actual comic book of X-Men Days of Future Past. It's totally different. Yeah, a lot of very similar thematic things are brought in, and it's clearly based on Days of Future Past, but it's also very different. All of the Batman movies, even the Christopher Nolan Batman movies have taken liberties. You know, you got to accept as a comic book fan that the job of the filmmakers is not to make the most faithful adaptation of the comic as possible. The job of the filmmakers is to make the best movie possible. And sometimes, most of the time, that means there's going to need to be some adaptation. There needs to be adaptation. And so instead of going, what I would say is this, is much like me with The Last of Us leaks. Like I heard The Last of Us leaks and I'm like, okay, I'm not happy about that, but I'm going to wait and see. Let's see how it plays out in context. What I would suggest to you, Kevin, is if, that's a big if Michael Keaton is even in the movie, and then if Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne replaces the Thomas Wayne iteration in there, even if that all happens, I would say don't close your mind off at that point. You don't have to like it, but be patient, wait, and see how it turns out in the movie. Because maybe it'll be the greatest thing ever. Maybe it'll be the greatest thing ever. Hell, Joker. You know, the Joker we just got with Joaquin Phoenix. Very different from any of the iterations in the comic books. And yet it was nominated for Best Picture, won Academy Awards, made over $1 billion, and everybody loves it. Right? So I would say even if all that stuff happens, I would say just be patient, take a breath, and wait till we see the movie. And then if we see the movie and it's terrible, then it's terrible. But maybe it'll be great. So we'll have to wait and see. All right. Next up here. Where are we going next? The next place we're going is TJCS writes, hey, John, just wondering if you can give a shout out to my new Twitter account, TJCS Update. Since your Twitter account is deactivated right now, I was hoping to start an account that updates people about your show. Thanks, and may the filthy be with you. While I appreciate that, let me just say something. Guys, please don't write in super, because I will, if I know that they're there in advance, I will skip over them. Please don't use super chats as a way to plug something of yours. Don't use the super chat feature or the tip link as a way to get a free quick plug. I appreciate that you're, especially in particular, you're trying to use that to update people. So I appreciate that. A couple things to keep in mind, though. Anybody who sees that TJCS updates, please understand that it is not an official channel. That is not me doing it. It's not me running it. So understand that. So, and for those of you who don't know, I've talked for a few weeks on the show about, I was thinking for a while of getting off Twitter because it's just turned into this awful, ugly cesspool that has no benefits. Like, Twitter right now is just an awful, toxic, ugly place that has no upside and no things. And, I just saw some of the way people, even some people that I know and some people I respect, the way they use Twitter over the past couple of weeks was really discouraging to me. And I'm just like, if I'm seeing those people use Twitter that way and I'm just seeing it just be this awful, toxic minefield, I don't know that I want to be on Twitter. It's like, is there any benefit to Twitter? The only thing I was really using Twitter for was using it for the daily question of the days. But I started using YouTube to create my questions of the day. And we're actually getting more people engaging with, like, we would get like 2,000 people would vote on a poll that I would put up like an hour before the show. But on using YouTube as the poll, we're getting like 3,000 to 4,000 people a day voting on it an hour before the show starts. So yeah, that's why I decided to get off Twitter at that point. So that's just me. And I'll probably come back on Twitter at some point, maybe in 3 months, maybe in 6 months, maybe a year. But Twitter is just it's a toxic, ugly place that there's no upside. I mean, I just realized that I don't benefit in any way from being on Twitter. I have much better time on Instagram. If I have announcements I need to make to our community, really the place I should be making those announcements is on the YouTube community tab, which has been way more effective. So yeah, I'm not trying to talk anybody else into getting off of Twitter. I'm not trying to talk you into getting off of Twitter. But for me, you guys know I talked for a number of weeks about thinking about it. And then, especially after everything that happened with Rob, I'm just like, you know what? There's no point in being on Twitter. I'm just going to get off Twitter. And I just got off Twitter. Maybe I'll be back in 6 months. Who knows? All right, next up. Bat Computer writes, hey, John, in 2018, you were very, very upset about a specific DCU rumor you heard. You didn't consider yourself a scoop guy and didn't want to reveal the story, but you were confident that the story would break. Did that ever happen? What was the story? It did break. And people didn't get nearly as upset about it as I thought they would. It had to do, I'm not going to go into it, but the story did come out. And I remember I talked about it on the John Campea Show over a year ago that the news did come out. And I don't know if it was just that people were just so used to hearing bad news coming out of studios or whatever, but people didn't get nearly, it certainly ruffled some feathers, but it didn't get nearly as much negative backlash as I thought it was going to have. It was regarding Nightwing, the Nightwing movie project and the director departing and all that kind of stuff. But people just didn't they didn't seem nearly as concerned about it as I thought people would be. Like, I really thought, like, when I heard about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be big news and people are going to be really upset about this. And then about 6 months later, it did come out and people didn't react to it. There was definitely reaction to it, but it was not nearly the reaction I thought it was going to be. It was not nearly the reaction I thought it was going to be. So yeah, there was that. Anyway, it had to do, of course, with the guy who was directing Nightwing and the Nightwing being pulled off and all that kind of stuff, but it didn't get the reaction that I thought it was going to get. Anyway, Russell Amador writes, hey, John, news like Keaton coming back isn't enough to get anyone hyped. What is it? News like Keaton coming back is enough to get anyone hyped. I don't know about anyone, but it certainly would get some of us hyped. I couldn't believe it when I read this. I had to fact check the first source after reading this because it seemed like a pipe dream. I'm still curious if Ezra will be Flash after the incident. I don't think there's any doubt right now that Ezra is going to be the Flash. And I got to say, I am very disappointed. You guys remember, I said this would happen. I said, like, in a day and age right now where a guy on a Warner Brothers show is getting fired off of the show because of an idiotic series of idiotic things that they just tweeted 8 years ago, we have Ezra Miller, who on camera grabbed a woman by the throat and threw her to the ground. And you know how much Ezra Miller and remember, I'm an Ezra Miller fan. I've always been an Ezra Miller defender. I like Ezra Miller as Flash. You guys, I take a lot of heat because I defend Ezra Miller. I like Ezra Miller very much. But I've been very disappointed, and I said this would happen, that Ezra Miller, his PR team, and Warner Brothers, their strategy for dealing with it was don't say anything. Just stay quiet. You know what? With everything going on in the world, with COVID-19 and all the stuff going on with Black Lives Matter and all the other loud things going on in our world, shh, let's just stay quiet and let's hope everybody forgets about it. They never came out. Ezra Miller never made any statements. He never made any apologies. There wasn't anything from Warner Brothers, at least even saying, you know, we at Warner Brothers take violence against women very seriously, and we have sat and we've spoke with Ezra Miller, and we're working through the issues with him and blah, blah. Even if to say they're not firing him, that's cool, but at least to address it. And I told you guys, I said, it seems to me like they're going to take the approach of, shh, just let's everybody forget about it. Let's just wait for everybody to forget about it. Meanwhile, they're firing people off of shows for something they tweeted 6, 7, 8 years ago. But a guy that grabbed a woman by the neck and threw her to the ground, and there's still some people out there who thought that was fake. I remember I thought it was fake at first too, but it wasn't. It was confirmed. That was real. It happened. Grabs a woman by the throat. He didn't say words. He actually physically grabbed a girl by the throat and took her to the ground. So you're firing. And look, I'm cool if you talked with Ezra, worked it out, we take this issue seriously, and we're going to move forward together, and Ezra is going to, take some anger management or whatever, but at least show some consistency. But it really frustrated me that Warner Brothers, while doing that with Ezra Miller, took a totally different approach with a dude. And by the way, I'm not saying they shouldn't have fired the guy off of The Flash. I'm not sitting here. Don't twist my words. Everybody loves twisting my words. Don't twist my words. I am not saying they shouldn't have fired him. I'm also not saying they should have fired him. What I'm saying is I was very disappointed in Warner Brothers in their total lack of any consistency here. Guy grabs a woman, physically grabs a woman by the throat, throws to the ground, caught on videotape. And you don't even say anything. You guys have dived into the bushes and said, hopefully nobody will look at us now. Nobody will notice. Nobody will talk about it anymore because all of this other stuff going on in the world. But then something comes out about another guy who tweeted something 6, 7, 8 years ago, and you fire him. I'm good with whatever Warner Brothers policy is. Just have a consistent policy. That's all I'm asking. You got to justify how you fired one guy and not the other. You got to justify how you allowed to keep one guy keep his job and not allow the other guy to keep his job. I don't care where your position is on this. Just have a position and be consistent. So yes, I do think Ezra is still going to be the Flash. I'm not saying he should or shouldn't be, but I'm saying he will be because obviously Warner Brothers' strategy here and Ezra's strategy has been, shh, let's just not talk about it. Let's just hope everybody forgets about it and it just goes away. Because they're right. There's a lot of other big important things going on in the world that have taken our attention away from it. So yeah, I expect that Ezra is going to be Flash, and I expect them to say nothing about it. And I'm disappointed in that. I think they should have at least addressed it. But hey, it is what it is, and everybody has a different point of view of it. All right, let's see here. Andy Hong writes, 1 of 6. Okay. Hey, John, get ready for a long one. Okay, here we go. I finally just turned in my 2 weeks notice for McDonald's after working there for 6 years, almost a quarter of my life. I'm 25 years old, to advance on a new opportunity that I was more educated for when I gained my Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering last year. By the way, all those jokes about engineering students lacking sleep are sadly true. I know my dad's an engineer. Just getting my interview based on my degree is not easy, but I'm lucky enough to be starting my new job as a design validation test engineer next month after networking so much. As excited as this sounds, I will miss working with my McDonald's store. I know it seems like a plain a plain simple job. No, it sounds awesome, man. It sounds like the beginning of a career. It sounds great. But there was a familial environment that kept me staying there for so long. And I gained lifelong friends from it. I can always see them outside of work, but I'm going to miss working with such great people. However, I also noticed that the job was becoming more mundane, and I became more frustrated with myself for not moving on. Realizing this, I made it my goal to get a new job when things opened up again. I know that you've experienced similar feelings with Collider. What advice can you give on moving on from a workplace that I've been at for a great length of time and felt like a second home with incredible friends? What is it like to move on from that kind of environment, but you've grown to be more frustrated with the job to pursue a career that is based on what you were trained for or more interested in? All right, thanks a lot for writing that in, Andy. And first of all, let's just say, good on you, man. Good on you for... Oh, a second here. Good on you for taking proactive steps to improving yourself and what you want to do. That is great. I think one of the main problems with a lot of people is that there's no, I don't want to say motivation, but there seems to be very little in the way of, ambition. I guess we'll use that word, ambition, to actually look beyond where you're currently at and want something more and be willing to work. Everybody wants something more, but very few people are willing to work for it. You did. You went out, you put in the work, you got the degree, and now you're moving on to do things. My situation was a little bit different from yours. In making the decision to leave Collider, there were a couple of things involved. I decided to leave Collider because I just saw that they were going in a direction that I knew could not succeed. I just recognized that they wanted to take Collider in a direction that I knew it would not succeed. Like, it's one thing when they don't want to do what I wanted to do. That's fine. There were times at AMC, when I was with AMC, that AMC mandated we do certain things that was not the same of what I wanted to do. But you know what? It could still work. I mean, I think this has a better chance of working, but that could still work. Okay, you know, whatever. So there were a lot of times at AMC that we didn't get to do, even though I was kind of running the AMC ship. There were many times that AMC mandated that we do things that were different from the way I wanted to do them. And that's okay. That's fine. The problem is that I recognized that the direction that the ownership and the leadership that were kind of running the Collider operation at the time, that the direction and stuff they wanted to go, it wasn't just that it wasn't the stuff that I wanted to do. It was specifically stuff that I thought was taking us down an inevitable path to failure. And that kind of propelled, and I hadn't been happy for a while, to be honest with you. I had not been happy for a while in the job, but realizing that when I really realized that they were really taking things in a certain direction that I thought ultimately could not work, well, then I had to make a decision. And right around the same time, my best friend growing up died, and I've talked about that, and his big thing was, life's too short to not be happy. You know, life is too short to not be happy. And so it was a big combination of things for me that I hadn't been really happy for a while, mostly because of the direction of stuff, but then also realizing that the direction that they want to take Collider in, I knew could not work. And they weren't listening to me, but I knew it could not work. And I also had to make a decision to not just get out to be happy, but I hate using the term brand. It's such a terrible, terrible term. But I also, I was talking to my wife, and I just realized that if the longer I stay, if Collider starts to go into decline, as I believed it would, if Collider started to go into decline, it would hurt my, again, I hate using the term, but it would hurt my brand. And, you know, my wife gave me some of the best advice, which is if you're going to strike out and do something on your own, now's the time to do it. While things are good, while everything's blah, 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 you know, but if you stay on a sinking ship, that will affect you later when you try to spin off and do your own thing. And by the way, spinning off and doing my own thing, that was hard. That's why I was talking about like Mixer at the beginning of the show today, that all these people now who suddenly have to get up and find a new platform, they're in a very tricky situation because people don't just up and move platforms to go with you, right? And I knew I was going to have a long, hard road in front of me to try to rebuild my audience again, but now was the time to do it. What made it particularly hard for me, it was difficult because there were some people there that I really did enjoy working with. Some people there that I didn't, but there were some people there, there were a number of people there that I really did enjoy working with and I really did enjoy seeing every day. It was also the thing that I built. I mean, I literally built that place from nothing. You know, AMC hired me to start a blog. And I started a blog with me and 2 assistants that they hired for me, 2 fantastic people. But to start a blog, and I slowly built that. And I told them I wanted to develop this into video. We developed into video. I hired more people. We put pieces in place, blah, blah, blah. And we built that thing from scratch. So that made it also very difficult to walk away from. That also made it very difficult for me to walk away from. But it was just the right choice and it was the right thing that I needed to do. So yeah, you just have to constantly remind yourself, like somebody like you're walking away from a work situation that you did enjoy, but had become mundane. And you've become very self-aware that for you to grow as a person, like, hey, listen, I believe there's a lot of people who can have personal growth and stay in the exact job they're in for 20 or 30 years. I absolutely believe that. But you realized that for you to continue your growth and to be challenged and to reach and to stretch yourself, you realized that you needed to make a fundamental change in your career. And you got the degree and you made it. And it is hard, but you need to constantly turn back to that, is that this is what I needed for me to grow. And yeah, it's going to be hard not seeing the familiar faces you knew every day. And it's going to be hard to not be in as regular contact with the people that you enjoyed so much. But you do have to just keep reminding yourself that this is what I needed to grow as an individual, in my career, whatever. And I think if you keep going back to that, I think you'll find great peace of mind. I think you will find great peace of mind. So good on you, Andy. And I hope for nothing but success for you as you move forward in your career, man. All right, next up. Gross Horror writes, hey, John, I've been watching since AMC. Your show has been a fantastic oasis for me as a film fan and hopeful filmmaker. I listen to you daily, and it got me through some hard times and long daily commutes. I've recently completed my 4th horror. And then he follows on. My 4th horror film, The Drawing, in lockdown, and it's getting more attention than I thought, including some news articles written about it. Good for you, man. That's great. One of which was in the horror magazine Dread Central. And my last film, The Loft, is currently at 26,000 views. Thank you for the continuous motivation to get off my ass and chase my goals. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. And if anyone likes horror films, please check them out on my channel. Guys, again, please don't use the things to plug your stuff. I appreciate that. Anyway, also, I hope your friends at Struggle Nation react to my shorts one day, because the short horror film reactions are so funny. Did your interview go well with them? Very excited to see your documentary. Well, thanks for that, Gross, and good on you for doing what you love. And that's the thing. Listen, 80% of the battle to get to doing the things that you love is actually just getting off of your ass and start the process in doing it. I say this all the time, and it's absolutely true. Too many people today sit on their ass and wait for somebody else to come walking along to hand them their goals and hand them their dreams, right? It's the American Idol mentality, right? It's like people just, oh, I love singing. I love to sing. And they're just, I need somebody else to come along and give me my dream. I need American Idol to come along so I can get on American Idol and win something. People want that. They don't want the work. They don't want the effort. They don't want the blood, sweat, and tears. And the 1,000 times that you fail to have the 2 or 3 successes. People don't want to do that. They're too lazy. We're too lazy as a species. We're lazy. So good on you, man, for getting off your ass and doing that. That's exciting stuff. All right. Charles Campbell writes, "Hey, John, have you seen the trailer for the new Netflix movie Over the Moon? I have not. It looks absolutely wonderful, and the animation style reminded me of Big Hero 6. I'm really looking forward to it. What are your thoughts? Thanks, and bring on the filthy." Well, I haven't seen it, so I have no idea what it is. Let me see if I can bring it up here. What's it called again? It's called Over the Moon. Over the Moon. Okay, let's see what comes up here. The only thing that's coming up is not an animated thing. It's a 2019 romantic comedy. Oh, here's an animated thing. Over the Moon on Netflix. Okay. A story about a girl who builds a rocket and travels to the moon in hopes of meeting the legendary moon goddess. Never heard of it. Never heard of it. Speaking of trailers, I did finally just watch that Adam Sandberg trailer for what's it called? It's like basically Groundhog Day. Is it called Palm Springs? Is that what it's called? It's a Hulu original movie. I finally got around to watching that. And it is very much Happy Death Day and Groundhog Day and all that kind of stuff, but it looks really good. It looks really fun, so I'm looking forward to that. So this, you're right. I'm just looking at some images here for Over the Moon. I'll bring it up on screen here. I'm looking at some of the images for Over the Moon, and you're right. It really does have a Big Hero 6 kind of look to it. So I will go and check out that trailer when I'm done the show. Thanks for putting that on my radar, man. I appreciate that. Okay, next one up. We've got where are we at? We're at Topher Rocks, who writes, cooler character, Burt Macklin of the FBI or Jackie Daytona in The Very Human Bartender. Listen, Burt Macklin is great. Burt Macklin, for those of you who don't know, that's Chris Pratt's character on Parks and Rec is Andy. And Andy has this character he slips into every once in a while. Burt Macklin, FBI. Oh, Burt, you son of a bitch. I mean, he's great. And it was great because when I had Chris Pratt in studio and we brought in a live studio audience for it, somebody asked him to do a Burt Macklin, and he did. And it was fantastic. And as much as I love Parks and Rec, and as much as I love Andy, and as much as I love Burt Macklin, I really do, Jackie Daytona is one of the best things I've seen on television all year. Now, for those of you who don't know what Jackie Daytona is, one of the vampires, Laszlo, goes on the run because he's running from another vampire played by Mark Hamill. And so he decides, I got to go to another city and start a new life. And I am Jackie Daytona, human bartender. It is an amazing episode of television. You do have to check it out. It's awesome. So I will actually go Jackie Daytona, Topher. All right. Austin Alberto writes, and by the way, guys, this will be the last question that I take, and then I'm going to take a short break and just go rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill my drink. So we'll do this one, and then we'll take a short break, and then we'll get on with the rest of your questions. All right, Austin Alberto writes, "Hey, John. So, the DCU's plan for replacing Batfleck is bringing back a 70-year-old legend to take up the cape again. No, that you're getting way ahead of what the story is. You're getting way ahead of yourself. That is not, nobody said that's what Warner Brothers' plan is. Nobody has said that is remotely happening. I mean, maybe it will, but nobody has said that that's what's happening. So just pump the brakes on that a little bit, my brother. All right. From what I have read, he will be like a Nick Fury. Again, ignore that. The actual place that actually got the story is the Wrap. Okay, they're the ones who actually have the sources telling them stuff. And there is nothing in there. That whole stuff about maybe being a Nick Fury thing, that is speculation, pure speculation stuff that other people are making up. Don't listen to it. I mean, I'm not saying that's not what they're going to do, but there's no basis for that right now. Just keep that in mind. Anyway, from what I've read, he will be a Nick Fury. How does Warner Brothers think having JLA movies without a fighting Batman will do in the box office? Well, they did an Aquaman movie and made $1 billion. They did a Joker movie with no Batman and made $1 billion. They had Batman movies and they never made $1 billion. Look, what I would say, Austin, is this. Don't freak out or get upset or get emotional over something that isn't even a fact. Like, you're making an assumption that isn't based on any fact and then getting upset at the assumption. So I would say just don't worry about it. Take a breath. For all we know, Michael Keaton is going to have a 30-second cameo in the movie. That's it. I mean, maybe it'll be something more substantial. Could be. But it could also be like a 30-second cameo. We just don't know. How important could he be to the movie if they've only just started talking to him now? Like, how important could it actually be to the movie? Maybe it is important. Maybe. We'll find out. But I would say don't get too upset. Now, as far as that goes, though, I mean, listen, they had Batman versus Superman. It didn't make $1 billion. They had Justice League, and it didn't make $1 billion. So I don't think, and then they did movies completely without Batman that did make $1 billion. So I don't think we can make any assumptions that you have to have Batman there in order for even a JLA type movie to succeed. They're already proving they can succeed without Batman. Now listen, a truly healthy, properly run DCEU has healthy and fighting Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, and has all those characters. But the reality is that they have already had some success without those characters and don't feel like they have to have them in order to succeed because they did have them and they didn't necessarily succeed. So you got to look at it from Warner Brothers' point of view. I mean, obviously, I would much prefer Ben Affleck back as Batman being in every DCEU movie. That's what I would like. But, you know, they're showing that they can go in a different direction and have great success. So let's just pump the brakes a little bit. We'll wait and see how it all kind of turns out. And maybe it'll be the greatest thing ever. Maybe Michael Keaton will be a major character. Maybe he'll just be a 30-second cameo in and out and gone. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But let's not get too upset over some speculations or whatever when we don't yet know what the actual facts are. And it might be a little while till we know what the actual facts are. But let's at least wait until then before we get too riled up about it. Okay, guys, listen. I'm going to take a quick, 2 or 3 minute break here. I got to go refill. We've been going for about 2 hours now. I need to go and refill my drink and hang tight, guys. Give you a chance to run and use the bathroom. Do whatever it is you need to do. So hang tight with me, guys. Don't go anywhere, and I will be right back. are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. Now let's keep on getting into your live questions. We're going to keep things rolling here with, that was Austin who just wrote in. Now we're going to go over to Lone Star, who writes, studios don't want theaters open for the money. They want them open for a shitload of money. May the Schwartz be with you, John. Always appreciate a well-placed, well-timed Spaceballs reference. Always enjoy that. Thanks for that, Lone Star. Damo Davies writes, good afternoon. Hope you're staying safe. I am staying safe, thank you. The thing that I love about Keaton's character is that Burton captured the fact that Batman is the real person, as Keaton's Bruce was so socially awkward, it was painful to watch. Love this idea. Love the idea of Keaton returning. And listen, I've always said that Ben Affleck's Batman was really the first Batman to truly get that concept. But you are right. I would say the next iteration of Batman that came closest to really understanding that Bruce Wayne was dead. Bruce Wayne died in the alley with his parents, and the Batman was born, and that's the real person, and that Bruce Wayne is just the facade. Like when you see Bruce Wayne, that's really Batman, and he's pretending to be this other character. I would say, other than Ben Affleck, the next closest to that was Michael Keaton. So I would agree with you on that one, Damo. That's a good observation. All right. Let's see now. Old Man Playing writes, between Prime and IMDb TV, about 1/4 of the way through 1,225 episodes of Dark Shadows, taking some fortitude to maintain the course. Fun look at early TV time, daytime soap opera production. I've never even heard of that, especially the early seasons. I'm not familiar with Dark Shadows at all. I'm not. It must be a UK thing. I'm guessing it's a UK thing. Well, I mean, obviously there's the movie Dark Shadows. That was with Johnny Depp. That was horrible. Man, there's like 8 different movies named Dark Shadows. Yeah, I'm not familiar with what that is. I'm not familiar with what that is. That's I'm Dark Shadows. Other than the terrible Johnny Depp movie, I'm not quite sure what it is we're talking about. Anyway, sorry about that. That one went over my head. All right, next up, Finn writes, Scorsese, I want $200 million for my new film. Paramount, no way, go to Apple. Christopher Nolan, I want $200 million for my next film. And I won't even let you read the script. Warner Brothers, say no more. Sending love from Ireland, John, you're the man. Well, yeah, but you obviously got to also remember that Christopher Nolan's films are proven moneymakers, right? Like, even if you go, let's go to Dunkirk. Dunkirk was this little period piece war movie, right? And it made, if I'm not mistaken, it made almost $600 million. Hold on a second. Where did it go? Okay, it made $526 million. Like a little period piece war film. Made $526 million. That was not advertised as a big action blockbuster. It was like, Christopher Nolan is a proven, he delivers. Christopher Nolan's proven it over and over and over again. Marty Scorsese is a great director, one of the GOATs. But oftentimes his movies are not exactly big box office hits, right? Like oftentimes his movies are not big box office hits. Sometimes they are, but often they're not. And so when Paramount's looking at this and saying, okay, you want this period drama piece? You want $200 million for that? We don't think, because now you're talking, after marketing, you're talking about having a movie that's going to need to make in the neighborhood of $550 to $600 million just to break even. And is that the kind of movie that's going to do that sort of business? It's possible, but not likely. Whereas with Christopher Nolan, his films generally succeed. Even when he does something like Dunkirk, they make money. And so there's a little bit more. So there's a little business. It's not that they think Christopher Nolan is better than Marty Scorsese. It's also about the very specific project. And this project that Scorsese wants $200 million from is just one that the studios are looking at and saying, we don't think it can make back that kind of money. Just like they did with The Irishman. They knew The Irishman looked great, but they also knew it wasn't going to make that kind of money in theaters, and so they couldn't fund it. So that's just the position they find themselves in. Okay, next up. Ben Rayner writes, Hey, John, I hope your time off is going well. It is very much, thank you. I know it could go either way, and I know it's not 100% confirmed, and I know it's a big if. But if Keaton is in talks for a multi-film deal, that gets me very excited. Seeing him return and DCU be would be great. Maybe, but maybe terrible. See, I'm not so sure. Really, is having a 70-year-old Batman running around the DCU, is that great? Or is it just a novelty? Is it a quick gimmick, a quick novelty of, hey guys, Michael Keaton is Batman? Is that really what the DCEU needs in a larger context? Is it? Because I know, listen, I got as excited as anybody else saying Michael Keaton appearing as Batman. Wow! But then take that instant kind of gimmick out of it for a second, that novelty, and is a 70-year-old Batman now running around in the DCU on a larger, more important scale. Is that what the DCU right now really needs? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe yes, maybe no. So we'll find out. We will find out soon enough what it will be. But you're right, Ben. There is a whole lot of ifs. But even though there are a lot of ifs, you got to forgive a lot of us if just the idea of Michael Keaton being back as Batman is something we all joked about when he played Birdman. And that he probably maybe should have won an Academy Award. I think that was the year that Matthew McConaughey, wasn't that the same year that Matthew McConaughey won for Dallas Buyers Club? And he really did deserve it. But, you know, there was a very, very strong argument to be made for Birdman, for Michael Keaton's performance in Birdman as well. But everybody started talking about, basically, that's the story of Michael Keaton and Batman. Wouldn't it be cool to see him back? So we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. All right, next up. Damo Davies writes, do you believe that Batman Forever under Joel Schumacher would have been better solely if Michael Keaton had reprised the role as Batman? Nope. As originally envisioned. Do you think that a third Burton Batman movie would have been better than Batman Forever? Well, one is a really hypothetical. Would a third Tim Burton movie have been better? I don't know, because I'm not the biggest fan of Batman Returns. Like, just being honest with you, I am not the biggest fan of Batman Returns. I don't mind. Like, I like it. You know, Danny DeVito's Penguin, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. Are you kidding me? Yeah, yes, but I'm not the biggest fan in the world of it. Would a third one have been better? I don't know. That's a good theoretical question. Would Schumacher's movie had been better just if Michael Keaton had played the role? No. I do think Michael Keaton is a better actor than Val Kilmer, but I thought Val Kilmer did really well. But it still would have been the same lines of dialogue. It still would have been the same story. All the things that hurt that movie. And by the way, I don't think that movie is terrible. There are terrible things about it, but I don't think the movie is terrible. But all the problematic areas of that movie would have still been there. That one bad cheesy line still would have been in there. Putting a different actor in there doesn't change the movie. It changed the performance he would have brought to the role. And while I do think he would have given a little bit better of a performance, because even though I think Val Kilmer is a very gifted actor, I think Michael Keaton is the better actor. But on any real material level, do I think it would have improved the movie? No, because all the things that are problems with the movie would still be there. You know, Val Kilmer's performance as Batman was not the problem with Batman. His performance wasn't the problem. And so if you swap that part out, if you swap out the part that isn't the problem, is that going to fix the things that are the problem? Probably not. So I'm going to guess no, Damo. I'm going to guess no. But we'll never know, right? We'll never know. James Bonner writes, as fans of the Lord of the Rings series, we love to quote the famous speeches and lines from the films. A personal favorite of mine from Samwise Gamgee. Then let's be rid of it. I can't carry it for you, Mr. Frodo, but I can carry you. Damn that. You know what? In all the lines that we talk about in Lord of the Rings, my friends, you bow to no one. But it is not this day. You know, on, and Gondor shall answer. And Rohan shall answer. And Rohan shall answer. With all these great epic lines, you're damn right. That was probably the best moment of Samwise Gamgee in all of the Lord of the Rings films. And that one moment, and don't get me wrong, the Samwise character is great throughout the whole thing. He's great throughout the whole thing. But that one moment, even if there was nothing else, justified the very presence of Samwise in the story. For him to look at Frodo, say, I can't carry it for you, Mr. Frodo, but I can carry you. And he scoops him up. Chills, dude. Chills. Hair on arm, standing straight up right now. Total chills. That is a great night, and that's a line that I often overlook. I don't mention that one enough, James, so good on you for bringing that one up. All right, Tyler Yates writes, Regal is going to be showing the Dark Knight trilogy. Nice. Jurassic Park, Empire Strikes Back, Black Panther, and more. Can't wait. Definitely seeing the Dark Knight, but might see Jurassic Park since I've never seen it. Hope things are going well. Yeah, listen, we often talk about, in the midst of all the garbage that's going on, specifically because of the pandemic, I try to find the lemonade out of the lemons, try to find the silver lining. And if there is a silver lining, it's that a lot of people are going to get to see some classic movies that maybe they've never seen the way they were originally meant to be seen, which is on a big screen. It's been forever since I've seen The Dark Knight on the big screen. I would love to go back and watch The Dark Knight on the big screen. I would love to go back and watch the first Jurassic Park on the big screen. But I mean, some good MCU movies. Put Man of Steel back up there. I mean, put the first Avatar back up. Put the original Star Wars. Well, they'll put the special editions, but that's fine. Even the special editions of the original Star Wars shows. It is one of the great things about it. And take advantage of it, guys, because some of these are movies you may never get another opportunity to see on the big screen again. And that is the way they're meant to be seen. And you've never really experienced those movies if you haven't experienced them on the big screen. So take advantage of it, Tyler. That's awesome. All right, next up, Stephen Johnson writes. Hey, John, longtime fan. Thank you so much, dude. Would you ever consider evil John Campea or Earth 2 merchandise? Bring on the filthy. Well, of course, every once in a while, when we're doing the John Campea Show, instead of having the countdown clock, I pre-record me answering the first batch of questions, the first batch of live questions, and play that as Earth 2 John. Maybe I should. Maybe I should give John an evil... Maybe I should get like Mr. Spock in the Mirror Universe. Maybe I should get an evil goatee and make Earth 2 John, evil John Campea, and put out a t-shirt. Maybe I should do that. You just give me some great marketing advice. I might have to take it, dude. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, I heard Earth 2 John and Felipe, the sentient dancing microphone, will be in Flashpoint. I'll believe it when this movie happens, when I see the trailer. Wouldn't that be awesome? One of these days, I'm telling you, one of these days, I am going to do, like with all the things, I even think Felipe, the sentient dancing microphone, has been around longer than Bring on the Filthy. I might be wrong about that, but I think Felipe, the sentient dancing microphone, has even been around longer than Bring on the Filthy. At some point, someday, I need... You know what? With all the merchandising that we have, I really should probably put up a Felipe, the sentient dancing microphone shirt. I should really consider that. Even if nobody else bought it, I should buy one. And just have a shirt of Felipe, the sentient dancing microphone. I will give that some serious consideration, Anonymous. All right. Spielberg fan writes, Hey, John, I grew up watching Columbo with Peter Falk. My dad loved Columbo. If there was Columbo on, my dad would watch it. Or just one more thing. Anyway, so it was before my time, but my dad would watch the reruns of that all the time. Anyway, and of course, Peter Falk was then in Princess Bride. He was the grandfather in Princess Bride. Hey, John, I grew up watching Columbo with Peter Falk. After watching a documentary, I was amazed to learn that the legendary filmmaker Steven Spielberg directed several episodes. I didn't know that. And credited Mr. Falk with helping him get other jobs in Hollywood. I had no idea. I did not know that. Considering that Steven Spielberg is my all-time favorite filmmaker, you would think that would be something that I knew, but I did not know that. I don't think I've ever heard of that before. I always love it when you guys give me like these really great little bits of trivia. That's fantastic stuff. That's good to know. And yeah, again, like Columbo, a lot of people have never watched it, obviously, because it was even before my time, but it was like one of those great era detective shows. Like he was the great detective, right? He was always solving the crime, and it would always end with, well, just one more thing, you know. That was pretty good. I'm surprised they haven't done a Columbo movie. Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't done a Columbo movie, because I think that would be ripe for that. But no, it's something to think about. Anyway, thanks for giving me that fun fact, Spielberg fan. I appreciate that. All right, Min Tran writes, with the announcement of the premiere date of Lucifer Season 5, do you think that at what point in the season you see Mr. Said Out B. Let me try this again. Do you think that at what point in the season you'll see Mr. Said Out B come out? I'm a massive fan of Lucifer. By the way, they also finally made it official. It's official. Season 6 has been announced. But I don't know what it is we're talking about. And don't forget, guys, Lucifer Season 5, Aaron Cummings is going to be making an appearance in it. She's in, I believe, one episode. I think she's like one episode of Season 5. But keep your eyes out for Aaron on that show. Anyway, sorry, man. I don't know what it is we're asking, so I can't answer it. Sorry, dude. This is probably just going right over my head. But I'm very excited for Lucifer, man. Very excited. All right, Alan writes, jury's still out on if video game movie curse is broken, but another thing that Hollywood has tried to very little success is anime/manga titles. What are some anime shows or manga titles that you would like to see get the live action treatment? Well, I'm not the world's biggest anime fan. I'm not against anime, but I'm not the world's biggest anime fan. But the one I have always wanted, was Space Battleship Yamato, also known as Star Blazers. That is one that I think is made for blockbuster movie making. Like, I can tell you right now, I'm really not sure Akira is going to do well. If they ever get around to making Akira, I'm just telling you, Akira is brilliant, but I don't know that translates into a true Hollywood blockbuster with North American movie-going audiences and their sensibilities. I'm not saying it won't be, I just don't know that it'll be a big hit. Space Battleship Yamato is completely built to be a big North American Hollywood blockbuster hit. Huge, like mankind under threat from alien invasion, take the remains of the old World War battleship Yamato, retrofit it into a space battleship that flies off into the cosmos with massive cannons and big space battles. And it's got everything that a big modern blockbuster could be. And doesn't have a lot of the more complex kind of, a lot of anime kind of twisty kind of stuff that even Akira has. Not a lot of stuff that would alienate a lot of the regular North American movie going audience. I think Space Battleship Yamato is a no-brainer. I really do. And I really hope. There's been talk for many years about them doing one, and I've always wanted them to do one, and I will be there. I would be so happy. I would be so happy if they announced the Space Battleship Yamato. All right, next up, Simon Blakemore writes, hey, John, how's it going? It's going well, thank you. Are you looking forward to Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy on Netflix? It's out on 30th July. Honestly, meh. I'm not, listen, I'm a huge fan of Transformers, but most of my love for Transformers goes back to the original animated series, the Generation 1 animated series. I was not a big fan of the Transformers animated movie, where the whole movie just existed to piss people off and to kill everybody's Transformers, so now all the kids had to go out and buy new Transformers. That's the whole reason that movie exists. Don't be fooled. The only reason that movie existed was as a piece of marketing to show all the kids, hey kids, all your favorite Transformers are dead now, so you need to buy all these new ones. That's the whole reason that movie existed. So I never really liked that. I loved the first Michael Bay Transformers movie, but I didn't like any of the ones that came after that. I really did like Bumblebee. So I'm in a position where I'm like, I'm not looking forward to all the new Transformers stuff they're talking about. I'm just, the track record for Transformers for me, other than the Generation 1 animated stuff that my heart will always belong to, I just I can't be positively excited either. So no, not particularly looking forward to it, but I'm not against it either. And when it comes out, I'll check it out and maybe I'll love it. Maybe it'll be my favorite thing ever. But in the meantime, nope, not a lot of excitement for it. Not right now. We'll see. We'll see though when it comes out. All right. Oilers. Oh, get out of here. Oilers. Well, they've certainly won more Stanley Cups in the last 40 years than the Leafs have. All right. Excited to see Keaton back, but honestly, would have preferred Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne for Flash. To me, that would have made more sense. Don't get me wrong. I am also very excited about the Michael Keaton's thing. And by the way, just because they're talking to Michael Keaton, that doesn't mean we won't see Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne. Just because one happens doesn't mean the other can't happen. So let's not make any assumptions at this point. All right, I still would have preferred Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne for Flash. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is my favorite actor. I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Love Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Where do we go? Jeffrey Dean Morgan is my favorite actor. I mean, the comedian, his role as Negan, he'd slay the Thomas Wayne role. Not to mention Lauren Cohen as Joker. And don't forget, the way I know Jeffrey Dean Morgan was, as the dad, the patriarch of the Winchester boys. He's Sam and Dean's dad in Supernatural. Doesn't matter what Jeffrey Dean Morgan does. He can win 4 Academy Awards between now and the end of his career, and I will always think of him as John Winchester. He will always be the dad from Supernatural to me, 100%. But again, don't look, even if Michael Keaton does join the movie, that doesn't automatically mean we won't see Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne. And if we don't see Michael Keaton, that doesn't mean we will see him. Again, we're just making a lot of assumptions right now, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's see how it all kind of unravels. And how dare you write that heresy of Oilers better than the Leafs. All right, Star Wars Rocks writes, hey, John, yesterday I sent you an email about the ways you can watch Miraculous Tales of Ladybug and Chat Noir. I don't know if you read it, though. I have not looked at my work email in the last 24 or 48 hours, to be honest with you. Yeah, part of it is I need to look at my work email a little bit less. I will look at my work email every couple of days. Every couple of days, I will open up my john@thejohncampeashow.com email. I will open that up and look at it every couple of days. But I'm purposely trying to not go and look at it too often. So I will go and take a peek. And I know you and other people have been telling me for a while to check out this Chat Noir or whatever it is, or Chat Noir or whatever it's called. And I have pulled it up before on the show. And I know there are a lot of people saying I should check it out. So at some point, maybe I will. But yeah, I probably haven't seen your email yet because I haven't opened my work email in a couple of days. So I'll probably check it out later tonight or tomorrow. But I'm trying to only look at it every few days. But I will check that out, Star Wars Rocks. Thanks for writing that in. All right. Oasim Talby writes, greetings from Paris, John. Bonjour, my friend. The rights of Daredevil revert back to Marvel in less than 6 months after being owned by Netflix. What do you think they will do with the character? Thanks. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know what they're going to do. I do know that it's not going to be the same Daredevil from the Netflix series. That much we know. There were some rumors going around that they were going to bring back Charlie Cox to play Daredevil again. Charlie Cox quickly shot that down and said, nope, that's not what's happening here. It will be a different Daredevil. What they will do with Daredevil, I don't know. See, here's the problem with Marvel right now. It's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem. Marvel, being one company, can only put out so many movies a year. There's only so many movies and Disney Plus shows and all that kind of stuff that you can do. The MCU as it is already overflowing with characters. Add on top of that now, they're about to add 200 to 300 more characters with the X-Men universe coming in. But they still will only have a limited number of movies they can put out per year. So now they're also getting back things like Punisher and Daredevil and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones and whatever else. But when and where are they going to do these things? That's part of the reason why I've always wanted, when Disney got X-Men back, I always wish they would just create a separate cinematic universe just for X-Men. Keep X-Men and the rest of the MCU completely separate. That way you can, and then give somebody other than Kevin Feige, even though Kevin Feige is the man, give somebody else other than Kevin Feige, make it a Disney, put it on, keep X-Men under Fox. That is now owned by Disney. And maybe give Kevin Feige, final say over everything, but let it operate in its own cinematic universe under a different studio so that you can get 1 or 2 X-Men movies per year and have them totally separate from the MCU. With it all being under the MCU, it's going to be very difficult and challenging. So I think they will do their own iteration of Daredevil, but I honestly don't know how long it's going to take them to do it. I'm guessing minimum 3, 4, 5 years because they just have too much other stuff to do, which is unfortunate. But yeah, the only thing I feel confident in, unfortunately, is that it's not going to be the Charlie Cox Daredevil. That much we pretty much know for sure so far. All right. Let's see. Yumi writes, "Hey, John, have you seen the miniseries Hollywood on Netflix? Jim Parsons, Darren Criss, Jeremy Pope. And if you have, what are your thoughts on it? I just binge watched all 7 episodes and I personally loved it. Definitely a new favorite." Let me just make sure we're talking about the same one here. Okay, yes, this is the same one. So, Darren Criss, Lauren Harrier, Jonathan, Dylan McDermott. That's the guy who I recognized in it most. And Samara Weaving, of course, from Ready or Not. God, that movie was good. I thought it was awful. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was really awful. My wife watched the first episode, liked it, so she goes, "Oh, watch the rest with me." And then we watched like the rest of them, and like even my wife was like, "Yeah, that wasn't very good." It tries to address, in kind of an Elseworld kind of way, it tries to address some really good and very relevant social issues in the show. And that's good. But just because you have the right subject matter and you're going for a certain thing, that doesn't make your show or movie good. And I just found it was a very poorly executed show. I mean, that's just me. Despite the fact that they had some very good intentions, despite the fact that they were trying to talk about some very good topics, I just found it to be a very poorly executed show that became difficult to watch. Now, I know some people that loved it, and that's great. I mean, that's what a show like that should do. It should get a lot of discussion going. But yeah, I just thought I did not think it was a well done show, to be honest with you. I did not think it was a well done show, despite the fact that it had some great subject matter and the ideas behind it and what its intentions were. Good intentions don't make a good movie. And I thought there's other things that try to tackle those issues that did a much better job. And yeah, personally, I didn't like it. But again, you clearly did. And I've got a number of people I know that really liked it as well. So that's just my personal opinion on it. I didn't find it to be very good, but that was just me. All right, next up. Julius A. Goodwin writes, and Julius A. sends in a $20 tip. Thank you for that, Julius. So as we do now, if you keep your eyes open in the next couple of weeks, it might take a little longer because the show's on hiatus right now, but we're going to clip out my answer here and put it up as its own video on the channel. It was really fun to meet you at the Zoom party. Well, I'm glad that you're there. For those of you who don't know, for our Patreon supporters, and please consider becoming a Patreon supporter, we've started doing these live meetups on Zoom. And I got to tell you, I love it because I'm still going to do on Facebook once in a while, like AMAs, like little quick text-based Ask Me Anythings. I have a lot of fun with those. But it was so cool. We've done a couple of these live meetups on Zoom for the Patreon supporters in the last few weeks, and I have really enjoyed them. If for no other reason, it's really fun for me to be able to put a face now to names that I've seen. So I see all these names on the boxes, right? It's like, oh, I know that name and I know that name, but I've never seen the face. And it was really cool to do that. Anyway, so thank you for being there, Julius, and thank you for being a Patreon member. Fun to meet you at the Zoom party. Well, more like to discuss face to virtual face. Thanks for taking the time out. My question, unrelated, is, do you think COVID has permanently ruined the profitability of China's cinematic market? I don't know, but I do know this. We talked about on the John Campea Show a few weeks ago that the reports coming out of China are that even now, even if everything opens back up now, 40% of the theaters in China are going to go out of business. And that's if things don't get worse. If things get worse, that could become 50%, 60%, who knows? But they're saying as it stands right now, 40%, the damage done as a result of the shutdown is going to cause like 40% of the theaters in China to go out of business. That's terrible, man. That's terrible. If that happens, then we're already seeing a permanent effect. Now, can the Chinese market bounce back? Of course it can. It can. Will it? I don't know. Once we're out of the woods of the COVID-19 thing, and we're clearly not out of the woods yet, but once we are, we'll only be at the beginning of seeing the long-term damage done, right? It's not going to be a situation where, okay, everything's fine now. So how much damage was done? Okay, now everything will just start getting better. No, it's going to be one of those things where we're going to continue, even once everything is behind us, you're still going to see more and more damage, the results of the damage that's already inflicted. That's when you're going to really start to see the damage being done. And there's more damage to come. So how bad, Julius? How bad? I don't even think we've begun to see. Listen, AMC has already come out and said that, yeah, we're going to be able to reopen. But we may still go out of business. We've got the finances in place right now to reopen when we're allowed to reopen the theaters. And we know they're reopening in about 3 or 4 weeks from now, which is great. But that's not, okay, so everything's fine then. Nope. They are still going to be getting hit with the results of what's been happening for the past 3+ months. So I don't even think we can begin to imagine what are going to be the permanent effects of this pandemic as it relates to the movie industry. Now listen, for everybody who's starting to yell at their screens, John, there's more important things going on than the movies. I understand that. I know. But here on this show, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about this little box about the world of the movies and entertainment. And within this little box, this is one of the biggest effects. And China is getting hit really hard. And so we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. First, we got to get the pandemic behind us, which it's not yet. Some areas of the world, they've put it behind them because they just apparently have smarter people living in their communities than we do. But we'll have to see how it kind of turns out, Julius. This is a great question to ask, and it's going to be a very, very big topic for a while to come. All right. Where are we at? Anon writes, hey, John, loved your review of The Last of Us. Thank you very much, Anon. Just curious, though, do you not equate to watching cutscene movies of games on YouTube to pirating movies? I don't think so. I don't consider it that way because I'm not actually playing the game. The games are meant for gameplay. So I don't, you know what? I'll be honest with you, I've never even considered that. Because the games are meant for gameplay. Like, you buy the game so you can play the game. I'm not playing the game. And the result of me seeing the story of the game is I'm now downloading the game. Like, I'm probably downloading it today so I can now actually play it through. The same happened when I watched the cutscene movie of God of War. But, you know, I've never considered that. Let me ask you guys, what do you think? Is watching because I am against piracy. I think whenever you take something that was created for the purpose of sale, I believe that is piracy. And I'm against piracy. I have never considered for a moment that watching the story of a video game that was designed to be played and played through, and I didn't download a rip of the game and was able to play it without paying for it. I watched a story, which is a secondary thing. I never even thought about, is that in and of itself a form of piracy? Never thought that. Never considered it. Maybe it is. Let me ask you guys, like, honestly, what do you think? Do you think watching, not playing, but watching a cutscene assembly of the story of a game, not doing the gameplay, but is that piracy? Maybe it is. I had never even considered that. I had never considered that. Like, I don't see the game companies going after the cutscene movies and putting out takedown orders or anything on them. So they must not mind them being out there, but I don't know. Yeah, listen, I love it, Anon. You've just given me something to think about that I've never even thought about before. So I will say this. As of right now, no, I don't consider that piracy because I'm not taking the game and playing the game. But maybe it's something I should think about. I love that you brought that up. So guys, yeah, please do jump in the comment section below and let me know what you guys think about that. It's a great question. All right. James Gold writes, if Batman Beyond were to happen, I think it would be someone other than Terry. Miles Morales is a much more popular character than Terry. That's true. I think one of the Robins would make more sense. Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, or even Damian as Batman Beyond. Yeah, it could. Because remember, we were talking earlier in the show too about, listen, when you make the movie, they take influence from the source material, but they never follow the source material completely. Civil War, Days of Future Past, Age of Ultron, you name it. Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, they take influence from the comic books they're based on, but very, very rarely, dare I say never, follow them verbatim with all the details. They change up a lot of things. You might be onto something there, James. If they do decide to do a Batman Beyond thing where the mantle of the bat is passed on to somebody else in movie form, they may do that with something that the general movie-going audience is more familiar with. People know Dick Grayson is Robin. Even if they've never read a comic book, they know Dick Grayson is Robin. And maybe he becomes the next Batman. And they call that Batman Beyond. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. But it is one of the possibilities on the table. I think you're right. I think it's one of the possibilities on the table. All right. A fan of Peanuts writes, "Hey, John, hope your morning is well. My morning, it's now afternoon, but my day is going very well, thank you. The last I spoke about The Last of Us Part 2, I was 12 hours in on Saturday. I am now 25 hours in, and it is simply beyond remarkable. Amazing visuals, extraordinary depth, and brutal, honest commentaries on revenge and pain." Dude, I can't agree with you more. And again, I respect that there are people out there who have played or watched the game and they don't like it. I respect that. I can only speak my own personal experience. My personal experience is this is, bar none, the greatest storytelling ever done in the video game format. If it was a movie, it would get all the Oscars. It's truly remarkable. And again, the brutality of it and the brutal honesty of it and the way it says this is what happens to characters. This story doesn't go as this is what we want to have happen to our favorite characters. It's no, this is what happens to the characters who live in this brutal world and who often have to be brutal themselves to survive in this world of brutality and pain. And even in that world, when something so astronomically painful happens to you, it affects you. But it shouldn't affect them because it's my favorite character. Too bad. They decided to go with the honest route. And the honest route was when these horrible things happen in an eye for an eye world and pain, unbearable loss and pain infect you, it will affect you. And they had the balls to follow that story. They didn't make the story serve the characters. They made the characters serve the story. And they just followed that story. What happens when this happens in your life? What happens when you are hit? When somebody, even a good person, is hit with that level of pain and loss? What can it do to you? How does it affect you? How does that pain take root in you and even change the way you view your own actions? It was powerful stuff. And again, I respect that there are people out there who watched it, played it, didn't have the same experience. All good. All good. But yeah, man, for me, it was it's something absolutely remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable to me. But that's just my take on it. Okay, anyway. Dr. Psycho writes, wait, so what did I gain by showing everybody what happened between Harley and Ivy? Kite Man, Clayface, and King Shark finding out makes sense. Oh, this is going to affect the crew dynamic in a messy and complicated manner. But why would anybody else care? I don't know. Unless you're talking about an animated show. I mean, and you know what? I don't want to go into it too much because there are people who haven't seen this yet, and I don't want to give too much away. I thought it was awesome the way they dropped that bomb. I thought the way they dropped the way Dr. Psycho dropped that bomb was great. By the way, side note, on Hulu, there's a new show on Hulu called Crossing Swords, which it's not as good as Harley Quinn, but it's really funny. It's a really funny animated show, definitely R-rated, definitely for adults. But there's this really funny little show, and as soon as I started watching it, I instantly recognized the voice of the same guy who does the voice of Dr. Psycho. So the guy who plays the clown brother in Crossing Swords is the same guy who does the voice. By the way, Luke Evans, I think, is the main... Nicholas Hoult is one of the voices as well. But yeah, I instantly recognized that the guy who does the voice of Dr. Psycho is also the voice of the clown brother in Crossing Swords, which is a nice little connection there. But yeah, if you have not watched Harley Quinn, do. If you've not watched Crossing Swords, I think you should. It's not for everybody. It's really silly and super adult, but I had a lot of laughs. I laughed a lot doing it, but I actually thought it was a great way for them to drop the bomb on that. I really did. I thought it was great, but that's just me. All right, John Klobukar writes, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing your name. This was supposed to be the summer of George. Speaking of George, speaking of George, why am I forgetting the name of the guy? Jason Alexander. Jason Alexander, who of course played George Costanza in Seinfeld. He is also one of the voices in Harley Quinn. He is the voice of the old guy in the wheelchair. That's him. That's Jason Alexander. So for those who may not have known, but if you've ever watching Harley Quinn, like, why does that voice sound so familiar? It's George Costanza from Seinfeld. And that was a great line, John. I love that line. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, what are your thoughts on the passing of Joel Schumacher? What was your favorite movie of his? Let's bring up, his passing is sad. But again, much like, Rob often talks about lives well lived, right? He was 81 years old and he had a life well lived. Now, again, unfortunately, a lot of people will think about Joel Schumacher and they will think about the Batman movies, and that's understandable. One of my favorite movies of his was probably the 2004 version of Phantom of the Opera. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the one that 300. Why am I freezing on his name here? Gerard Butler. I froze on Gerard Butler. I had to look it up. Gerard Butler, Emmy Rossum. I really did like it. Not everybody's favorite iteration of Phantom of the Opera, but I loved Phantom of the Opera. And it's hard to believe that, Gerard Butler is the same guy who was then Leonidas in 300. So there's that as well. He made some things that weren't, but I liked his 8mm. Oh, Time to Kill. I totally forgot Time to Kill. Oh, but the other one that nobody talks nearly enough about is the one he did with Michael Douglas, Falling Down. I love this movie. I think this movie is one that does not get enough attention. This is a movie that doesn't get talked about enough. Falling Down is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful, wonderful movie. And I totally forgot that Schumacher directed that one. Totally did. Again, he got to do Batman movies, but the unfortunate part of that is that a lot of times now that's all people think about when they think of Joel Schumacher, when he did a lot of other great stuff. All right. Carolina 29593 just send in a $20 tip just to do it. Thank you so much, Carolina. That's really generous of you. Thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level. We really appreciate you around here. And may you have a fabulous day. All right, Curtis Lopez writes, the movie Dark Shadows was based off the TV show. Okay, that makes sense to me. Man, that movie was terrible. Oh my gosh, that movie was terrible. Really, really, like Doolittle bad. Seriously, it was Doolittle bad. I don't know how that movie got made. I simply do not know. Anyway, Curtis Lopez writes, did you hear that Lucifer is officially renewed for the 6th and final season 666? Well, yes, but, and while I totally appreciate we're getting another season when we weren't even gonna get it, they're saying the 6th season is going to be the final season, but they said that about season 3, and then they said that about season 5. So until it happens, and until they totally pull the plug on this thing, I am just going to hold out hope that there's going to be a season 7. I love Lucifer. So I love this show so much. I'm so excited for season 5 to come and knowing that we're going to get a season 6. Because remember, this thing got canceled after 3 seasons. It got canceled on Fox and Netflix came in and saved it. So we weren't supposed to get it. So every single episode we get now is just bonus. But we got season 4, and I really enjoyed season 4. Then now we've got season 5 coming, which is supposed to be the last one. And then they announced we're getting season 6, and now that's official. So I'm just taking every episode of Lucifer that we can get with a big smile on my face and gratitude in my heart. But yeah, I'm very excited for its return. And again, guys, I'm reminding you all the time that Aaron Cummings is going to be in season 5, so keep your eyes open for her. All right, an anonymous viewer sends in a $50 tip. Thank you so much for that. And if there is a question in here, we're going to segment this out and put it up as its own standalone video on the channel. All right. Anonymous viewer writes, John, love your shows. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I was wondering when we might discuss again actor casting for future Marvel movies, because I would love to see Jack Black portray MODOK and Dominic West portray Victor Von Doom and Stephen Lang portray Kang. Well, I mean, here's the reality is this, though. I don't do discussions on X actor in X role because here's the thing. I've explained this before, but I will say it again here. You want to see Jack Black as MODOK. Okay, but what if the MODOK they're doing is nothing like Jack Black and it's just not right for Jack Black to play? See, you're saying you want to see Jack Black play MODOK, but that's because you're envisioning the character being a certain way in your head. And that simply may not be the way they're going to do him in the movies, if they use him, right? You say you want Dominic West. Dominic West is great, by the way. I mean, you don't have to look any further than The Wire. Dominic West would be a great Victor Von Doom, but it depends on what their Victor Von Doom is supposed to be. And because you may find out what their Victor Von Doom script looks like and realize, oh, Dominic West is not the right fit for that. Right? Same thing with Stephen Lang. I love Slang, he likes to be called. He corrected me once. He said, call me Slang. So I'm like, all right, Slang. I love Stephen Lang. But it all depends. Like if they ever do Kang, like maybe it's written in such a way that Stephen Lang is not the right fit. So we all do these make-believe castings in our heads, but it's always based on the way we are writing the characters in our heads. When really, they might be the worst castings ever, depending on how they're going to portray those characters in their movies, right? So that's why whenever somebody brings up to me or talks about, John, what do you think about X actor playing this role, whatever, my answer is always the same. It's always, I don't care. All I care about is, does the actor they're casting have a lot of talent? That's all I care about. Because I don't know the script. I simply don't know the script. So if you were to come to me and say, okay, we've got a movie about, there's a new movie, they're rebooting Iron Man, and it's going to be a slightly older Iron Man now. They're not doing it with Robert Downey Jr. They're kind of rebooting it in something, and they're getting George Clooney. Well, all I can do is go, well, I have no idea how you're writing this character, so I have no idea what this character is supposed to be like. But I do know that George Clooney is a fantastic actor. He's a multi-Academy nominated actor. He's a fantastic actor. So I'm good with his casting. And then I'll just trust that you know whether or not he's a good fit for the character or not, because you know how you wrote the character and I don't. So that's why you don't hear me doing a lot of speculations about, oh, I'd like to see this actor play this role or that actor is that role. Because then what inevitably happens is you get a lot of fans who go, no, they cast the wrong person. And it's like, well, you don't know that. Because you haven't seen the movie yet. You don't know whether or not the way they've written that character is a good fit for this actor. No, they should have cast this guy. Yeah, but that guy might have been the wrong choice. Look, I know we go back to it a lot, but just think about Heath Ledger cast as Joker. Everybody hated it. Everybody today pretends like they knew it was a good idea, but that's bullshit. I remember when they announced it, and everybody hated it. Brokeback Boy is going to be Joker? He's not Joker. Okay. And you know what? Even I'm like, well, I mean, Heath Ledger's a little bit hit and miss as an actor. Sometimes he's not so good, and sometimes he's awesome. So I don't know. I'm like, I don't know that he's a great choice to play Joker, but I don't know. We'll see. But a lot of people were like, nope, he can't be a good Joker. He's not a good Joker. But I think if a lot of us had been able to read Christopher Nolan's script before the movie came out, I have a feeling a lot of us would have been more positive and thought, okay, all right, the way you're doing Joker here, I can kind of see how Heath Ledger might be a good match for that. I mean, maybe yes, maybe no, but the fact is we had no idea. Some of us had, when Christopher Nolan was going to be bringing in the Joker in The Dark Knight, some of us had Jack's Joker in our head. It's like, who would be right to play that Joker? Some of us had Cesar Romero's Joker in our head. So it's like, who would be right to play that Joker? We had no idea of what Christopher Nolan's Joker was going to be like. And so when we heard Heath Ledger, Well, he's not Jack Nicholson. Well, of course he's not. He's not Cesar Romero. Well, of course he's not. We just didn't know that he was, in fact, a great choice to play the role. He was a talented actor, little hit and miss in his career, but he had shown that he can be really, really good when he was on his A game. But yeah, so that's why you don't see me getting a lot. I do every once in a while, but very rarely. You very rarely see me get into big speculations about here's who should play this character, like, because we just don't know, right? And that's why generally I don't care. So I don't get into a lot of those X actor playing X roles or X director directing X movie. All I care about is, I don't know what the story is, so all I care about is, are you casting somebody who has shown that they've got talent? That's all I care about. If you're casting somebody who is in the past has not shown me that they have talent, I'm going to be concerned. If you cast somebody who has shown that they do have talent, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. Anyway, Anonymous, thank you so much for writing that in and sending that in. And listen, you just reminded, we need to see more Dominic West. There needs to be more Dominic West, damn it, in our movies. Because Dominic West is awesome. And it's not just because of The Wire. All right, Ben Rayner writes, which Clint character did you like more? The man with no name, or Dirty Harry, the man with no name? Don't get me wrong, I like Dirty Harry very much. Do you feel lucky? I'm watching the Dirty Harry movies now. They're hella fun, and I am liking this character almost as much as his Western characters. How about you? Listen, I love Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry was almost a genre unto himself. You know what I mean? Like, Clint has transcended being the king of different genres. He was the king of the Westerns. Then for a period of time, he was the king of the cop movies. And then he's like the king of directors. Clint Eastwood, I mean, oh my God. Like, if they ever do build a Hollywood Hall of Fame, he is a not first ballot entrant. He is the first guy you put in. The first guy you put in is Clint Eastwood. He's done it all and exceeded as it all. Great actor. Dominated multiple decades in different genres. Academy Award winning director. Blah, blah, blah. He's got to be the first guy you put in. Yeah, you can make an argument for Hitchcock and all. Yeah, absolutely. But I think, man, I think your first entrant into a true sports style Hollywood Hall of Fame, I think has got to be Clint Eastwood. I mean, the dude's just the guy. But I lean a little, as much as I love Dirty Harry, I lean a little bit more over to the man with no name. All right. Next up, Sam writes, an interesting, the Keaton thing, as interesting as the Keaton thing is, I won't lose my mind until I see the headline, Affleck returns. Well, listen, you and me both, dude. That is the day that I lose control over my bodily fluids. Because you guys know how I feel about Ben Affleck as Batman. I love that dude. I love him as Batman. I wanted to see him more as Batman. I'm totally good with Matt Reeves. I mean, hey, if it can't be Ben Affleck, I think Matt Reeves is a great choice as well. I think he's going to do great stuff with Batman. I think Robert Pattinson is a tremendously gifted actor. I've said that from day one. And I think it's going to be great. But yes, the thing I really want to see, and it's never going to happen, but the thing I really want to see is Ben Affleck is back. I'm just going to lose my bodily fluids. I'm simply going to lose control of my bodily fluids if that happens. All right, Canada Rocks writes, like you, I'm a huge fan of Space Battleship Yamato. Have you seen the live-action Japanese? Yes, I have. Have you seen the live-action Japanese film Space Battleship Yamato 2010? I liked it, but I did not love it. They were hoping to start a franchise, but it did not do as well as they wanted. Yeah, I was not a fan. And by the way, a lot of it is available. They've just put, I think, most of it up on YouTube. So it's available on YouTube. I was disappointed with it. But here's what that 2010 version did for me. It gave me a glimpse of what a Hollywood studio could do if they had it. Right? I mean, there's nothing more glorious than giant space battleships in space. Like huge military space armada battles. Oh, God, it would be so cool. It would be so cool. I want them to do it so badly, man. But yeah, unfortunately, I was not a fan of that version, but it did at least give me a hint about, imagine what they could do if they had like a $150 million US studio budget, create these big, glorious, tentpole kind of movie with all these big, huge scenes. And gives me a boner, man. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, Video game companies are actually very much behind cutscene movies and people playing their games online. It's free advertising. They do not consider it piracy. They actually sponsor such people. Oh, really? They endorse people putting out the cutscene movies? I could see that because, listen, I could see them doing that because there are a number of video games that I have purchased because I watched and loved the cutscene movie. I had never played Uncharted Thief's End till I watched the cutscene movie and loved it, went out and bought it. I had not bought Gods of War until I watched the cutscene movie and went out and bought it. So that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me that the game companies themselves would be behind letting the story mode of it be released and let people see the story of it. Because, I mean, at least I can only speak for myself. It worked on me. It got me to become a customer. So that I wouldn't be surprised to find that out. So thanks for giving me that insight, Anonymous. All right, next up. Man of Steel rules. I agree. Writes, hey, John. It's been a crazy year so far. That's an understatement, my friend. Whenever I need a pickup, I go back and watch your video about Kong versus Godzilla being rated R. You said what Godzilla's going to do, hit Kong with a bus and have Kong say, fuck, that hurt. It cracks me up every time. I still remember that. And that wasn't long ago. That was only a couple of weeks ago because it kind of became clear those PG-13. A number of people thought that they might actually go rated R on Kong versus Godzilla. And my whole thing was, you don't need to be rated R. Like, do you know what you are allowed to do in a PG-13 movie, whether if it's aliens, animated, or giant monsters doing to them? You can do almost anything. Like, Optimus Prime pulled out a giant sword and started decapitating other Transformers. Perfectly fine for PG-13. Because it's not human beings doing it. It's monsters, aliens, whatever. You can get away with everything. So I'm like, Godzilla versus Kong, you're going to be able to do a lot of violence in that movie. And like, the only thing that would give it an R is like sex and a lot of language. I said, like, what are you gonna do? Like, King Kong hits, or Godzilla hits Kong in the nuts and Kong goes, fuck, that hurt. Like, is that what you're gonna do? But I remember that. That was funny. So thanks for the callback on that, Man of Steel, and thank you for being here and being one of our community members. I appreciate that, man. All right. Last question of the day, which is great because we just passed the 3-hour mark. I thought open mics would be shorter, but this is great. I've been having a ball. Chris 1529 writes, just now watching, and you may have already answered this, but do you think we will actually see Keaton in the cowl? Also, you know what? I haven't addressed that about whether I think it'll actually happen. Also, Keaton is in good shape for his age, but do you think that they will use some slight de-aging effects if he does get into the suit? All right, so here's the thing. First of all, we don't even know if he's going to be in it. If he is, we don't know how long he's going to be in it. If it's a quick cameo, if it's a longer thing. If he is Bruce Wayne, is he actually going to be in the Batman cowl? Don't know. I would say this. If what stands to reason, and this might not be true, but it seems to me at any rate, it stands to reason, if you're getting Michael Keaton to play this role, then you're getting him because he's a certain age now. Like, you're not putting Michael Keaton in here despite the fact that he's... How old is... Oh, a second. Hey, Google. How old is Michael Keaton? Let's see what Google says here.
68 years old.
Okay, so Mike Keaton is currently 68 years old. He's going to be 70 in 2 years. If you're going out to get Michael Keaton to play Batman, it's because he's that age now, not in spite of the fact that he's that age now, right? And so it would seem to me, if you're going out to get him and you want to put him in the cowl, then you want him to show his age. You want him to be this older, embattled, grittier Batman thing, kind of like what we got in The Dark Knight Returns. You want him to be that. If you don't want him to be that, then don't get Michael Keaton. And clearly, it being Michael Keaton is not that important to their story, or else they would have had him locked up a long time ago. But instead, they're moving forward on this movie, and they don't even know if he's going to be in it or not. So clearly, it's not that important. So I would think if you want a Batman who's not that old, like you want him 52 and whatever, then you go and you get an actor that you don't have to de-age, you don't have to do any of that stuff with. I think the fact that they are going after Michael Keaton tells me they want Michael Keaton specifically because he is the age he's at and that he is Michael Keaton and all that kind of stuff. And you want him to be the way he is. So my guess is, I think it's going to happen. I'm also guessing, just a guess. I'm guessing it'll be a very small role. And I do not think they're going to de-age him or anything like that. So that's where my guess is right now. I retain the right to change my thoughts on that as new information becomes available. But with what information we have available to us right now, my guess is he will appear. It'll be a very small part, and that he will be as he is. So again, that's my guess. But if new information comes out, I retain the right to change my mind on that. All right, guys, listen, that'll do it for today's 3-hour installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much, guys, for being here and being a part of it. Listen, I think we're going to do another Open Mic again on Thursday. I think Thursday we'll do another Open Mic, so make sure you guys come in and join us for that. And by the way, you can start sending in questions for that Open Mic on Thursday anytime you want by using the tip link in the description, or just enter it in manually here, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Don't forget, there is no John Campea Show right now for the next few weeks, but we will do an open mic every few days, including this Thursday, so keep your eyes open for it. We'll come back and do another open mic on Thursday. Guys, thank you so much for being here and being a part of this. It's always fun to be able to get together and interact and talk about this stuff. And by the way, special thank you to all you guys who did send in the questions, because number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about. Number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us here on the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you guys very, very much for that. All right, guys. That'll do it for me for now. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.